If I could only think of how to cut you away, I wouldn't be so frightened or scared to be enlightened. It's kind of difficult to keep my mind on a day that I didn't really mind it. It's in my face, I'll find it. The fields of colors bleeding and it's so far from home. The thoughts keep coming forward, I wish I wasn't so bored. Does it really matter if I'm dying alone? I often try to fake it, what's in my face I'll take it. I'm trying not to break it, the timing it was so right. The heaviness is so light, no more or less is coming. The substance stand for something, you keep speaking easy, you really do believe me. Please tell me where you're going. I hope my fear is showing, 'cause I'll never ever see you again. If I could have the heart to take a knife to my skin, I'd carve your name for comfort, a feeling there of some sort. It's been a small eternity tormenting within, so hard to keep it inside. My mouth waits for the surprise, staring out my window at a bird on the line. I wish I could get cable, I wish that I was able to filter all the brainwaves that will enter my mind. If I didn't have to see it, I just don't think I need it. If I was pierced, I'd bleed it. Faster is the placement to fill your mental basement. Enough room for your demon is the catalyst with semen. I'm sorry if I frighten, but you're someone I confide in. Please tell me where you're going. I hope my fear is showing, 'cause I'll never ever see you again. I'll never ever see you again. I promise.
devil. I am the Lord Satan from the netherworld, ruler of the damned and eternal king of hell. Even I, the master of deceit, can only stomach so much bullshit from the mainstream media and indie grifters. That's why I tune in to Morning Extra with Uncle Warren, because he eliminates my competition, and also because I know I'm gonna see that motherfucker soon.
Deo, Deo.
Baby's got a burger and a shooter and that shake is all go down. Baby's got a burger and a shooter and that shake is all go down. Corrosion to her thighs, erosion of her pride. Baby's got a shooter, baby's got corrosion now, corrosion now. Baby's got it.
Good morning. I'm a little short there. I was all lounging around, and then I got short. Hello. Good morning. It is Tuesday. I think this is our first official Tuesday morning extra. I was supposed to do one last week, but you know, as they say in the excrement business, shit happens. A lot. Good morning, everybody. We got Chuck's Intergalactic UFO Show, Intergalactic. Another dimension. Good morning, Bella. Good to see you. Global, are you trying to make money off my forehead? Don't let prop corrupt you, okay? You know, you could sell advertising on that forehead. You son of a. I don't care. Prop thinks I'm mad at him because he makes fun of my forehead. I think it's nice that he notices me at all after what we've been through together. Remember we were in that hotel in Thailand and he kept calling me daddy and spanking my ass. What's up, John? Good to see you. Good morning, sir. On this somewhat overcast day here in Chi-Town. Prop, I said one in the chat for Warren's forehead. You know, we could do a show together and we'll just put shit on my forehead the whole time. And then, yeah. Fucking Dollar Tree Andrew WK coming at me and my hair. My head. Where's your show, Prop? Let me get it. You need to bring your show back so I can make fun of your shit. You're wondering what to cook tonight. Ooh, it is taco. Yeah, it is Taco Tuesday. That was a bit racist, but fuck it. I like tacos. In the morning, too. You, what's up, Desert Mazza said, I spent a week in Thailand 1 month. I've heard it's nice. I know, right? John, we got spoiled. Remember last week we had that one day, it was like 70 something degrees and it was sunny. I go for my long walks around here and I was in a t-shirt and I was sweating. It was crazy. A forehead LED display. You know, and if I don't have any business, Bella, I can just have like where it just says advertise your business here. Advertise your business here. It is kind of a big forehead now. But I always got to comb back. You know, if I had bangs, it wouldn't be bad. It'd be fine. Can put like the bat signal on there. So if we need Batman, I could just uncover my hair and psst, you know, let it shoot out there. Self-degrading humor. Hey man, I'm funny looking. Might as well take advantage of it, right? Yes. Advertising. Yes, exactly. Or as Keaton would say, yeah, yes, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly. Uh, so, yeah, it's Tuesday. Last Friday was wild. 3 hours. What's up, Willie? Willie dropping the 10 spot. He knows I'm going to give him that lap dance. How does it feel to live in a country where government is controlled by the John Birch Society logic? Exactly. Thanks for the $10, man. Every day is getting kind of wild, isn't it? Dolores. We got Dolores over on Facebook. Good morning, dear. How are you? And thank you. Sharing is caring. She's so sweet. Make sure if you can there, Dolores, drop your link in the thing for your show. If anybody, all your creators, drop your links. That's why you're deputized. So anyway, OCD, easy as 1, 2, 3. Let's try that. All right, very good. Yeah, so we got a lot to get to today. This morning, I should say. Last Friday, 3-hour show. It was crazy. Damn, I am like going nuts with this. Yeah, it was 3-hour show. I didn't mean to be. I was trying to do a shorter show, but I guess, all this rambling at the beginning kind of took up some time. But nobody over on Rockfin or Rumble yet. But we have viewers on Rumble, which is great. I check the numbers, every time after the shows, and there's a lot of people watching. I have 179 subscriptions on Rumble, or subscribers, I should say. And I usually average like about 150, 160 views on those things. So Rumble, the silent but deadly over there. Good job to you guys. So spam.com. You're not a creator, just here to annoy me. Cool. John, I appreciate that. Okay, so hopefully it won't be 3 hours today. That was a bit long. It might be. Who knows? Fuck it. I don't time these things out. But let's get started. Let's get to everything. The Yemenis in Yemen, because that's where Yemenis come from. They're a tough bunch of people, right? I knew some guys from Yemen in New York. When I went to I used to go to their deli at the end of the block all the time. And I asked him, I said, how are things in Yemen? Thinking he's just going to give me some horror story. He says, no, we're we do what we do. And, and they don't take no shit off nobody. Especially, they're very loyal to their pals in Lebanon and in Gaza and the West Bank. And that's the kind of thing you don't find too much these days, is that kind of loyalty. So, but because they're loyal, they're getting shit hammered by the United States. Osama number 5 over on Rumble. Yeah, man. Good to see you. Bye. But let's just get to the tit for tat as the U.S. trying to flex their weak little muscles. As new airstrikes hit Yemen, as Ansarallah pledges to meet escalation with escalation. Yep. They are. Oh, what is this? You trying to be a bitch today? All right. I see you. My mouse hates me. I got to get a new mouse. U.S. warplanes conducted new raids in Yemen's Hodeidah late on March 17th, which was St. Paddy's Day yesterday. Hopefully you had a good St. Paddy's Day, by the way. Targeting the Al-Arj area in the Bajil Central District and an iron factory in the Al-Salif District on the Red Sea port city. The airstrikes marked the 3rd consecutive day, now 4th, of attacks by the U.S. and U.K. navies against the Arab world's poorest nation. Think about that. The Arab world's poorest nation is still scaring the shit out of your navy. Over the weekend, over 50 Yemenis, including many women and children, were killed by dozens of Western air raids. In response to the aggression, the Yemeni Air Force, or Armed Forces, the YAF, targeted the USS Harry Truman aircraft carrier group with cruise and ballistic missiles. It would be funny. It would be very ironic if they hit the USS Harry Truman with a nuke, or at least an atom bomb. I'm not saying that should happen. I'm just saying, I kind of like irony sometimes. The weekend strike sparked massive protests in Sana'a, which we'll get to, as they gathered support for the Palestinians and Lebanese. After engaging with our armed forces, U.S. aircraft carrier retreated as far as 1,300 kilometers north of the Red Sea. Ansarallah leader Abdul Malik al-Houthi said on Monday, of course, part of that famous rock band, the Houthis and the Blowfish and the Blow You Away Fish, we are confronting U.S. aggression by targeting its aircraft carrier, warships, and naval vessels with greater escalation options if it persists. If the situation and responsibility require us to take a bigger step or bigger action, we will not hesitate, and we are ready for this option, the Houthi said during a televised speech. The defense minister in the Ansarallah-led National Salvation Government, Major General Mohammed Al-Atifi, also confirmed that the YAF is ready to develop the confrontation in a manner commensurate with the scale of the challenge and any emergency. The naval battle against the Israeli enemy following its violation of the ceasefire agreement in Gaza is not like before, Atifi said. The officials added that the capabilities of the YAF are sufficient to conduct long-term naval battles using methods that will astonish our enemies, stressing that the country will not remain silent in the face of the Zionist aggression's persistence in its brutality, starvation, and unjust siege of the Palestinian people. So for those who don't know, that's why Yemen is in the mix, because they're trying to help Palestine, who's being literally erased off the map. Yemen will respond to a siege with a siege and escalation with escalation. The aggressor is the most unjust. If you return to hostilities, we will return to hostilities. We will force the Zionist entity and those who support it to submit to international laws and agreements, including the truce agreements. We're doing the entire world a favor by getting rid of these guys and their ability to strike global shipping, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said on Sunday. We're doing the world a favor. Yeah, you're doing the world a favor by getting your ship blown up. After fuckface Donald Trump announced an extended campaign against Yemen. For his part, Trump has repeatedly stated that the attacks on Yemen are a warning to Iran. And Iran's like, you ain't warning anybody. Every shot fired by the Houthis will be looked upon from this point forward as being a shot fired from the weapons and leadership of Iran. And Iran, all in capital letters, will be held responsible and suffer the consequences, and those consequences will be dire, Dump said via social media on Monday. Mouthful of shit. U.S., British, and Israeli warplanes have carried out hundreds of attacks against Yemen since January last year in response to Sana'a's pro-Palestine operations. Despite the combined attacks, the YAF forced several Western warships out of the Red Sea. I'm an engineer and a physicist, and I've been around missiles my whole career. What I've seen of what the Houthis have done in the last 6 months is something that I'm just shocked. Former U.S. Undersecretary of Defense for Acquisition and Sustainment, Bill LaPlante, said last November. So, yeah, the Houthis not fucking around. And seems like the West is finding out. And that's the thing. It's like, Trump. That's why I don't do a lot of, I don't hardly do any Trump stories. So if you came looking for Trump stories, we're all out of bullshit here. Because that's all he does. He runs his fucking mouth. His little toadies run their mouths. And then they end up just looking stupid. It's ridiculous. So, as we said, the Yemenis held massive pro-Palestine rallies in defiance of the U.S. airstrikes. The Houthis are making it clear they won't back down despite U.S. airstrikes and threats for them to expand. Yesterday, huge crowds came out in support of Palestine in the Yemeni capital of Sana'a and other provinces across the country following a series of U.S. airstrikes against Yemen. According to Yemen's Saba news agency, Demonstrators in Sanaa marched under the slogan, "Steadfast with Gaza, we confront American escalation with escalation." E for E. E with E. The demonstrations came after Abdul Malik al-Houthi called for a demonstration in response to the U.S. airstrikes and to show solidarity with besieged Palestinians in Gaza. Look at that. That is nice. You love to see that. That's unity, folks. Wouldn't you like to see American cities full of people doing this? It's beautiful, man. It's beautiful. You hate to see it because you know what it's for, but you love to see the unity. Global, I'm sorry, I forgot to shout you out, man. But you chimed in with head boy over there, forehead boy, so I had to shun you for a second, but we're good now. We announced our comprehensive move in response to the recent aggression and U.S. escalation with military escalation, general mobilization, and economic boycott of the enemies. One moment, please. Is this thing on? Okay. You guys can hear me, right? I see levels. I don't see anything. All right. We escalation and economic said a statement issued by organizers according to Iran's press TV. We fear no one and bow to no one except God. We will confront escalation with escalation. Very good. That's a good statement. That's a good sentence. We fear no one and bow to no one except God. Houthi, a member of Ansar Allah's political council, said Yemenis were ready to face the U.S. You are mistaken, Trump. We are ready to face all the tyrants of the earth, to make sacrifices and remain steadfast in our positions, he said. We're always with the Palestinians and will not abandon them. We will continue the siege on the enemy and confront them until the siege on Gaza is lifted, right? You know, Yemen is like that friend. You know, you see these kids' movies where there's this kind of kid, he's always bullied and stuff, and he always has the friend that's like, yeah, come on, I'll fight those motherfuckers with you. You know, that's who Yemen is, right? As we said, the U.S. bombed Yemen over the weekend, killing at least 53 people a few days after al-Houthi announced Ansar Allah's blockade on Israeli shipping would go back into force following Israel's blockade on U.S. aid and all other goods entering Gaza. But see, because the whole not fucking with Israel shit depended on Israel keeping its word. And, well, we all know how that went. So the Houthis said, you know what, go fuck yourselves. Game on. The Houthis had ceased their attacks on shipping in response to the Gaza ceasefire deal, which took effect in January. Let's see. More U.S. airstrikes were reported in Yemen yesterday, and so far the Houthis have launched 2 rounds of attacks on the U.S. aircraft carrier USS Truman. In response, the U.S. officials have said the attacks were intercepted. Well, the U.S. officials sure as fuck didn't say we stopped Yemen, because they're never going to say that. About 80% of Yemenis live in Houthi-controlled territory, and the group has controlled Sana'a since 2014. Despite this, Western media frames the Houthis as rebels and portrays them as Iranian proxy, and President Trump has said he would blame Iran for their attacks. While the Houthis are aligned with Iran, they are an independent organization with their own interests, a fact acknowledged by the U.S. officials. Again, more propaganda. It's like, they're helping Iran, so they might as well be Iran. It's like, no, they're their own people, man. They've probably done more than Iran has, that's for fucking sure. The U.S. backed a failed Saudi-led effort to oust the Houthis from 2015 to 2022, which involved a brutal bombing campaign, blockade, and ground fighting. According to UN numbers, which are considered a low estimate, the U.S.-backed war killed at least 377,000 people, with more than half dying of starvation and disease. Yes, because they're under a blockade as well. They're under a blockade. So they're struggling too, but yet they're still doing shit. U.S. war chief threatens Iraq against interfering in support of Yemen. Uh-oh. We got to go. Doesn't that guy look like, doesn't that guy kind of look like Tom Hanks a little bit? Like, you know, if Tom Hanks had a little bit of poof in his cheek. Sorry. I just looked at that last night. I was like, this is Forrest Gump. U.S. Defense Secretary and Chief Toady Pete Hegseth delivered a strongly worded warning. I wonder if he got with Bernie Sanders, so he could learn how to write strongly worded letters, because Bernie's the king of that. To Iraq's Prime Minister Mohammed Shia al-Sudani regarding any potential support by Iraqi resistance factions for military operations carried out by Yemen, according to a report by Shafaq news agency. Shafaq is going on here. So basically, you know, like we said, they have you have the Iraqi government, but you also have the Iraqi resistance, which is a separate thing as well. Hegseth informed Sudani that any interference by Iraqi armed factions regarding the U.S. targeting of the Houthis in Yemen would prompt Washington to launch a swift military response against those factions inside Iraq, and therefore they must be prevented from any interference, as happened previously in wars in Lebanon and Gaza. Sources told the agency yesterday. Hegseth stressed to Sudani the need to expedite disarming the armed factions and work to dismantle them. He emphasized that this issue is of great interest to Dump and his administration. Sudani confirmed that the government is working on this issue and is in dialogue with the armed parties to reach an agreement in this regard, according to sources. The warning came during a phone call between Hegseth and the Iraqi premier on Sunday. An official Iraqi statement said the two discussed developments in the region, including Yemeni military operations and the situation in Syria. Hegseth said Washington will continue attacks on Yemen unless its maritime operations come to an end and that the U.S. does not seek escalation. Sudani stressed Iraq's commitment to protecting the global coalition's advisors present in Iraq at the request of the Iraqi government, to restricting the use of force to the Iraqi state and promoting internal stability. The Shafaq report comes after the Yemeni armed forces scared the fuck out of the USS Harry Truman twice in 24 hours in response to their attacks over the weekend. Death toll, they said, were at least 51 killed, 100 injured. During the genocidal campaign against the Gaza Strip, Iraqi resistance factions launched numerous drone operations against Israel and even carried out joint attacks with the YAF, which is merged with Ansarallah resistance movement. That's an interesting combo. The Iraqi resistance and the YAF, or the Houthis, Houthis and the Iraqis. At the very start of the war, Iraqi factions also launched multiple rocket and drone attacks on U.S. bases, but stopped after government pressure following the killing of 3 U.S. soldiers in an attack on a base near the Jordan-Syria border in January last year. Washington has for years been pressuring Baghdad heavily to put an end to the presence of armed resistance groups in the country. U.S. airstrikes targeted Iraqi resistance groups such as Kataib Hezbollah several times last year and the year before. Baghdad has previously held talks with the factions about the issue of disarmament, yet the issue hinges mainly on the presence of the U.S. military in Iraq and the group's insistence of a full withdrawal. Talks between the U.S. and Iraqi government are on an end. Talks between the U.S. and Iraqi government on an end to the combat role of the international coalition led by Washington, which is meant to include some form of withdrawal, have continuously stalled. Dump's administration has recently stepped up economic and diplomatic pressure on Iraq, demanding that it reduce its ties with Iran. Trump revoked a U.S. sanctions waiver allowing the Iraqi government to import electricity from Iran, a State Department spokesman announced on March 8th. So, here we go again, back at it, murdering people in Gaza, and now everybody has to, the Yemenis were like, all right, we're doing this again, let's, all right, whatever. As we said, there really wasn't a ceasefire as far as Israel was concerned. I think everybody knows that by now. Anybody who thought there was either very unknowledgeable of the situation, or probably sniffed too much paint in their day. Morning coffee, delicious. Gaza food kitchen shut down 16 days into the Israeli blockade. Yeah, how can you support starving children? I mean, shooting them in the head, starving them. What kind of fuck are you that would support that shit? Israel's most recent blockade of Gaza has reached day 16, deepening the humanitarian crisis in the Strip and forcing desperately needed community kitchens and bakeries to shut down. That's according to Al Jazeera. The operator of 10 charity food kitchens and other humanitarian services in the Gaza Strip says only 2 food distribution centers are now open after Israel's blockage of all humanitarian goods, the Qatari news outlet stated. We had 80 pots every day that we were serving to people. Now we're working on about 20. Omar Abu Hamad, coordinator with the Heroic Hearts organization, said before Israel imposed the blockade, the kitchens were providing food for about 40,000 people in central Gaza's Deir al-Balah, but now only 10,000 Palestinians are receiving meals. As the main source of food for them, we no longer have the ability to serve them, Abu Hamad said. Director of the government media office in Gaza, Ismail al-Thawabta, that's an interesting name, stated on Monday that more than 10,000 aid trucks have been blocked from entering Gaza as part of a systematic policy of starvation against the Palestinian people. That's exactly what it is. And they're doing it for the whole world to see. So, really, you just have to be fucking stupid or complicit to not understand what's going on in the Middle East at this point, or just not paying attention on purpose. The occupation has also denied entry to 850 fuel and cooking gas trucks, leading to a complete paralysis of the transportation sector, the closure of bakeries, and a total halt to humanitarian operations, the Wabta added. Hassan Radwan, a displaced Palestinian from Gaza, told AP about his reliance on food from aid groups. In light of many crises, the closure of crossings for 2 consecutive weeks, we suffered greatly from a shortage of flour and a shortage of food. As you can see, we now get our daily sustenance from charity, Radwan stated. In the past, we did not depend on charity in many ways, but today we are forced to come to the charity due to scarcity of materials. Materials are very scarce, a shortage of water, shortage of food, and a shortage of everything, he added. Tel Aviv imposed its most recent blockade on Gaza to pressure Hamas into allowing Israel to abandon the ceasefire agreement reached in January. Hamas is seeking an end to the war, the withdrawal of Israeli forces, and the free flow of humanitarian aid into Gaza. Israeli leaders are aiming to resume the war, forcibly expel Gaza's 2.3 million residents, and annex the Strip to build settlements for Jewish Israelis. The UN Children's Agency UNICEF called the situation urgent and demanded Israel restore access to water and electricity to prevent further loss of life in the enclave, which has been devastated by 18 months of Israeli bombing and siege. Despite the ceasefire, Israeli forces continued to bomb Gaza. On Monday, 3 Palestinian men were killed by an Israeli drone in Barej refugee camp in central Gaza. We were sitting, and suddenly the drone came on top of our heads. I felt very scared, and I moved to stay near the rubble of our home, a survivor of the bombing shared with Al Jazeera. The young men were busy not very far away from me collecting firewood, but without warning, a missile hit them. Some other people were injured. We climbed a hill to try to help them, and we were shocked to see a quadcopter overhead. We were so terrified. Israel's army said the men were terrorists planting bombs near its troops. Was the Mike Myers meme from where he's Dr. Evil and he goes, right. Also on Monday, Fuckhead's special envoy to the region, Steve Witkoff, said the administration is exploring alternatives for forcibly expelling Palestinians from Gaza under the pretext of providing them a better life. I mean, I think we're exploring all alternatives and options that lead to a better life for Gazans. And by the way, for the people of Israel, oh yeah, of course you got to throw Israel in there because you can't say that you're gonna do nice things for these people without Israel. Witkoff said between strokes of cock, and talking to some chick. I don't care. You know what? You want a better life for Gazans? Tell your Zionist shithead buddies to stop bombing the fuck out of them. Hey, how about that, right? Hey, problem solved, right? Right. Get the fuck out of their country, maybe. That's probably a good idea, too. P-Stuff, what's up, P-Stuff? Good to see you. We got Wesley in the house, too. Good to see you, my friend. Anybody else slip in here? I think we're okay for right now. As we said, they want to literally wipe them off the map, and create a new map, based on a fairy tale book that only 1/7 of the world believes. So the Jenin camp is now 100% destroyed after 2 months of Israeli siege. So congratulations, Israel. You destroyed Jenin. Good job, you evil motherfuckers. The municipality director of the occupied West Bank's Jenin, Madhu Asaf said on yesterday that the city has been almost completely destroyed by the Israeli siege and assault, which has been ongoing for nearly 2 months. Jenin has been under full occupation for 56 days, and 3,200 homes have been evacuated. He said, adding that 100% of the Jenin refugee camp has been leveled and 85% of the streets in Jenin have been destroyed. Life is completely disrupted in Jenin, and we have around 8,000 commercial establishments completely closed. Entire neighborhoods surrounding Jenin camp have had their residents displaced, the municipality director went on to say. The Israeli army launched a wide-scale operation against the city of Jenin on January 21st, invading and besieging its refugee camp and beginning a systematic campaign of destruction and displacement. The operation quickly expanded to include other cities in the occupied West Bank, namely Tulkarem, which has been under attack for 50 days. The city's two main camps, Nur Sham's refugee camp and Tulkarem refugee camp, have bore the brunt of the attack. Over 43,000 people have been displaced in both Jenin and Tulkarem. At least 47 have been killed and dozens of others injured. Israeli forces have destroyed hundreds of homes and buildings in both cities with explosives and bulldozers. Because everything's Hamas, remember, everything's Hamas, including buildings. Several areas of the Jenin and Tulkarem camps have been taken over and transformed into military posts. In late February, Israeli tanks entered Jenin refugee camp for the first time since the Second Intifada in 2002. Israel's defense minister, Israel Katz, said last month that the Israeli army is planning to remain deployed in the occupied West Bank's refugee camps for the next year. Meanwhile, Palestinian Authority security services continue to crack down on the resistance of both Tulkarem and Jenin in coordination with the Israeli army. Yeah. And it's not just there. Lebanon, of course, has been fucked in the ass with no KY over all this, too. Lebanon reports new Israeli violations of ceasefire agreement, or as they call it, Tuesday. Get this thing to work. Come on, fucker. All right. Lebanese media reported new Israeli air and ground violations of a ceasefire agreement in southern Lebanon on Monday. According to state news agency NNA, Israeli forces staged a ground incursion in the outskirts of Aita al-Shaab town in the Kalat Warda and Hadab Aita areas in southern Lebanon. Again, I butchered all those names. My apologies. I looked up Jenin. I've been calling it Jenin this whole time, and I'm like, stupid. I'll get more pronunciations, hopefully. Hopefully the ones in English, too. Apache helicopters also conducted extensive sweeps around Yaroun town in Bint Jbeil district, the broadcaster said. Sunday, 2 Lebanese were killed in an Israeli drone strike in southern Lebanon, taking the death toll in the last 24 hours to 5. I'm sure that's up since then. A fragile ceasefire has been in place in Lebanon since November last year, ending months of cross-border warfare between Israel and Hezbollah, which escalated into a full-scale conflict in September. Lebanese authorities have reported nearly 1,100 Israeli violations of the truce. 1,100. Not one, not 11, not 100, 1,100, including the deaths of at least 92 victims and injuries to more than 285. Under the ceasefire deal, Israel was supposed to fully withdraw from southern Lebanon by January 26, but the deadline was extended to February 18th after Israel refused to comply. It still maintains a military presence at 5 border outposts. Why? Because of many factors, including Sheldon Adelson's widow, the whole Zionist tentacles that encase the world. They do, and they make themselves, and they use the Holocaust as a shield to say, oh well, you know, if you say that what we're doing is evil, then you know you're being anti-Semitic, and it's like, you know, that phrase is starting to wear thin with people. You know, it's like the boy who cried wolf. If you're the boy who cried anti-Semitism all the time and everything that you see is anti-Semitism, well, chances are it's probably not anti-Semitism. Just saying. Yeah. So anyway, but there's a little bit of hope here because like most people who overplay their hands, they tend to be arrogant and don't plan ahead very well. And that includes the Israeli army, as Israeli army in the worst position to confront Hamas, a military source has said. Any large-scale military operation against Hamas will require call-up of tens of thousands of reserve soldiers, according to Israeli media. The Israeli army is in its worst position to confront Hamas as the Palestinian group continues to rebuild itself amid a Gaza ceasefire deal, an Israeli military source said on Monday. The Israeli army has not conducted any effective combat operations for about 2 weeks, allowing Hamas to bolster its military capabilities in preparation for a new round of fighting, the public broadcaster Khan, I shall leave you as you left her. Buried in the center of a dead planet. Buried alive. A ceasefire and prisoner exchange agreement has been in place in Gaza since January 19th, pausing, quote-unquote pausing, Israel's brutal military campaign that has killed more than almost 50,000 people, mostly women and children, and left the enclave in ruins. First phase of the ceasefire agreement ended in early March, but local fat guy, fuckface, pedophile Benjamin Netanyahu refused to enter negotiations for the second phase of the deal. Instead, he wants to extend the first phase of the agreement. Hamas has refused to proceed under these conditions, insisting that Israel abide by the terms of the ceasefire and immediately start negotiations for the second phase, which includes a full Israeli withdrawal from Gaza and a complete halt to the war. Continuing the ceasefire without releasing the Israeli captives does not alleviate their suffering, but rather gives Hamas time to arm itself and prepare for the next battle, the source said. How can we possibly sit idly by and let Hamas accumulate its forces and capabilities to use against the Israeli army in any future ground offensive? Or you just end the fucking war. I don't know. According to Khan, any large-scale military operations to weaken Hamas will require a massive ground invasion, which could require the renewed call-up of tens of thousands of reserve soldiers. And they're already having problems with the Orthodox Jews over there who just said, You know, it's that meme of Danny DeVito where he's just going, no. So good luck with that, you Zionist pieces of shit. Last November, the ICC issued arrest warrants for Netanyahu and his former defense minister Yoav Gallant for war crimes and crimes against humanity. In Gaza, Israel also faces a genocide case at the ICJ for its war on the enclave. So, yeah, I mean, the ground troops, they've only got so many ground troops. So What does that mean? Does that mean other soldiers will come in, like, I don't know, American troops? Are you an American soldier? Are you willing to go in there and shoot babies in the head just for some Zionist, Hydra piece of shit? You really have to rethink why you're in the military these days. If you're in the military, right? You know what's going on. It's not like you're shielded from the information. The information is there. So if you are in the military and you are overseas, I really do hope you rethink your life in general. So Israel, in their fuckery, are making rules that are trying to keep the Palestinians from getting any help at all from non-government organizations, as new Israeli rules may make aiding Palestinians nearly impossible. Again, we go back to these camps that are being destroyed, the blockade. New rules proposed by the Israeli government could make delivering humanitarian aid to Gaza in the West Bank almost impossible, sparking fears among NGOs dedicated to aiding Palestinians. The Coordination of Government Activities in the Territories, COGAT, an Israeli body responsible for overseeing Palestinian affairs, presented a new plan for humanitarian aid distribution, which some NGOs considered unacceptable, according to AFP. The ability to deliver aid and adhere to humanitarian principles in Gaza, the access restrictions we're facing in the West Bank. All of these things, when you put them together, you just feel like you're watching the apocalypse, an anonymous staffer told AFP, describing the situation as, we basically have a fire extinguisher trying to put out a nuclear bomb. At the end of February, COGAT proposed a plan to strengthen Israeli control of aid by setting up logistics centers connected to the military and implementing stricter controls over the entire humanitarian supply chain, with the stated objective of combating looting and misappropriation of aid. A representative of the European NGO stated to AFP, the thinking of COGAT was that Hamas would rebuild itself thanks to humanitarian aid. That's false, and humanitarian aid won't bring them rockets or missiles, adding that Israel is only seeking more control over the area. Exactly. They're saying, well, they're going to smuggle them in these aid trucks. They're smarter than you. I'm telling you, what if Hamas had the backing of the United States? We'd be calling that shit Palestine right fucking now. The NGOs noted that the date when the new rules set by COGAT on humanitarian aid will go into effect remains unknown. A separate mandate by the Israeli government set in March had already tightened the restrictions of NGOs working with Palestinians through a new framework requiring organizations to provide detailed information about their staff, granting the government the authority to reject employees it considers connected to the delegitimization of Israel. How about that? This comes after Israel enforced a ban on humanitarian aid entering Gaza on March 2nd, when the first phase of the ceasefire in Gaza ended, in an attempt to pressure Hamas into extending the first phase instead of moving into the second phase of the agreement. So there you go. It's pretty much the same picture as it was before. Israel blockading Gaza and, trying to starve them out. You've seen all the pictures. The Strip leveled. They're trying to turn it into a parking lot for some new casinos, I guess they're going to put up. Meanwhile, down in Syria, Syria and Lebanon mixing it up as HTS shelling on Lebanon kills 7, wounds 36 others. And there's a tank. There's 2 tanks. You're welcome. 7 people were killed and 36 others wounded after HTS launched an attack on the Lebanese border town of Hosh al-Sayed Ali in Hermel district. Baalbek Hermel Governorate and Al Mayadeen correspondent reported. Got the black lettering here. You like that? Rocket shells also struck the nearby town of Al-Qasr, originating from the countryside of Al-Qusayr, in Syria, despite reports suggesting that militants had entered the Lebanese side of Hosh al-Said Ali. An al-Mayadeen correspondent confirmed that these armed groups remained at least 500 meters away from the town. The Lebanese army responded by launching an airstrike on artillery positions targeting civilians in the area. The army confirmed in a statement that specialized units were deployed to Hermel after several Lebanese military positions were attacked from inside Syrian territory. Lebanese forces directed concentrated fire toward the attackers' positions to halt further aggression. The statement added that military reinforcements were in place to strengthen defensive positions and prevent further violations of Lebanese sovereignty. Additionally, communication between the Lebanese military and Syrian authorities is ongoing to restore calm in the border region. Meanwhile, Syrian media reported that at least 5 militants were killed in those clashes along the Syrian-Lebanese border. Yeah. Meanwhile, across the way in China, Beijing is having issues with the owner, I guess the owners of the Panama Canal, as Beijing calls Li Ka-shing, a traitor in Panama Ports deal. So let's get down here. There he is. He's on the phone. He's like, yes, hello. Hello. Yes, I'm fucking all of you. All right, goodbye. Don't call this number again. No, I don't have I don't want car insurance. Beijing criticized Hong Kong tycoon Li Ka-shing for betraying all Chinese people after his flagship company announced its plan to sell most of its global ports, including 2 at the Panama Canal, to BlackRock. Dun, dun, dun. The Chinese State Council's Hong Kong and Macau Affairs Office, the HKMAO, or the HICMAO, circulated an article titled "Don't Be Naive and Senile" on its website. Don't be naive and senile. I hear that all the time. When I'm on the bus, I'm at the local, Aldi's. On its website on Thursday, calling on the 96-year-old entrepreneur to rethink the transaction. The article said the big deal proposed by C.K. Hutchinson's Lee's flagship company is not ordinary commercial behavior, as it was announced after U.S. President Trump called for regaining control of the Panama Canal in January. Okay, cool. After the Panama Canal is Americanized and politicized, the U.S. will definitely use it for political purposes and pursue its own political agenda. Wang Junji, the name may be a pseudonym, as the author has no title and has not published any article before. Wang Junji. It's a nice nom de plume. Says in the article, citing comments from many netizens. Once the U.S. implements docking restrictions and imposes political surcharges, Chinese companies' logistic cost and supply chain stability will face significant risks. And that's the point, right? That's what Trumpy wants to do. Wang says that through his transaction, BlackRock will control approximately 10.4% of the world's container terminal throughput, becoming one of the world's 3 largest port operators. They already own all this other shit. Now they got all the ports. Hydra. The company will probably cooperate with the United States' suppression policy against China, increase the cost of China's freight docking, and squeeze the market share of Chinese shipping companies. The U.S. may also use this transaction as a model to push for mergers and acquisitions of ports worldwide through political pressure, control more key ports, and use long-arm jurisdiction to implement suppression measures, leaving China ships nowhere to dock, he said. Because of this, netizens generally strongly questioned and criticized C.K. Hutchinson and its proposed deal, saying that this was a kneeling, a profit-seeking, a trade of integrity for profits, a disregard for national interests and national justice, and a betrayal of all Chinese people, he adds. These emotional expressions from netizens are completely understandable. The author says Lee should choose the right side in the fight between the U.S. and China. The article was first published by Ta Kung Pao, a pro-Beijing newspaper, in Hong Kong on Thursday following the closure of China's 2 sessions on Tuesday. The two sessions are the annual meetings of the National People's Congress, the NPC, which is not to be confused with the NPCs in video games, although they might be. I don't want to judge. And the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, or the CPPCC, or as I like to call it, the CPPCC. Huge docking fee. What? In his inauguration speech on January 20th, Dump said it was time for the U.S. to retake control of the Panama Canal. He blamed former U.S. President Jimmy, and now present corpse, Jimmy Carter, for signing the Panama Canal Treaty in 1977 to guarantee Panama would gain control of the Panama Canal after 1999. Trump complained that the Panama Canal, which has military value, is now controlled by a Chinese company. He said this because Hutchinson Port Holdings, a subsidiary of the Hong Kong-listed CK Hutchinson, started operating the ports of Balboa and Cristobal at both ends of the Panama Canal in 1997. In 2020, the U.S. terminated Hong Kong's special status and began treating Hong Kong companies as Chinese. On January 21st this year, the Office of the U.S. Trade Representative, the USTR, launched a public consultation on an ongoing Section 301 investigation on China's acts, policies, and practices targeting the maritime, logistics, and shipbuilding sectors for dominance. The USTR suggested that China made container ships be charged a fee of up to $1.5 million American whenever they call on U.S. ports. The public consultation will end on March 24th, which is next week. On March 4th, CK Hutchinson said it had agreed to sell its entire 80% stake in Hutchinson Ports, which owns, operates, and develops 43 ports comprising 199 berths in 23 countries, to BlackRock for $22.8 billion. Well, that alone, should say, hey, look, you senile old bastard that's about to croak. Don't sell it to BlackRock. Zhu me and everybody else. Shuffle off the buffalo. Zhu Mi, a senior research fellow at the Chinese Academy of International Trade and Economic Cooperation, or CADIC, told the Global Times on March 7th that the United States plan to impose fees on China-related vessels is a unilateralist approach that violates World Trade Organization rules. Like that, at this point, the U.S. is not complying with anybody's fucking rules around the world, all right? Get that through your head. This will lead to an increase in logistics costs. U.S. enterprises will likely pass on this price to the downstream, means you and me, thus increasing U.S. supply chain costs, he said. Restricting U.S. firms from using Chinese ships will worsen the imbalance in the United States ship fleet and stunt the growth of its shipbuilding industry. The Dump administration also imposed a 10% tariff on all imports from China on February 10th and another 10% on March 10th, in addition to an existing tariff of about 20% on all incoming Chinese goods. Besides, on March 12th, it imposed a 25% tariff on all steel and aluminum imported into the U.S., aiming to force metal suppliers to build factories in America. I could do that. It's even then, it's still going to be cheaper to import it than building their own factories and maintaining and paying, people a fair wage. Not going to happen. The Queen government ceded Hong Kong Island in 1842 and the Kowloon Peninsula in 1860 to Great Britain. In 1863, two Scottish businessmen established the Hong Kong and Wampao Dock Company, HWD, which is currently Hutchinson Ports. In 1977, HWD merged with Hutchinson International Limited to become Hutchinson Wampao, which was acquired by Lee in 1979. After the 1989 Tiananmen Square massacre, Chinese leader Deng Xiaoping told Lee in a 1990 meeting that Hong Kong's freedom and autonomy would remain unchanged for 50 years after the 1997 handover. However, the situation changed after Chinese President Xi Jinping took office in 2012 and tightened political control in Hong Kong. Lee started selling assets in Hong Kong and mainland China. In September 2015, a think tank under Xinhua published an article titled "Don't Let Li Ka-shing Run Away." The article criticized Li for selling assets in China to invest in Europe. The article said Li should not take away all his money from Hong Kong, as he had benefited from Beijing's support for decades. In August 2016, Victor Li, the elder son of Li Ka-shing, said Zheng Kang could sell all properties in Hong Kong except its headquarters in Central. After the 2019 protests, Beijing made perfect Hong Kong's election system in March 2021, removing the say in the election that the tycoon had enjoyed as a member of the 1,200-member election committee empowered to choose the city's next chief executive. But now China's leadership realizes that Li's ports have huge strategic value in the Sino-U.S. trade war. Canada-based Hong Kong commentator Simon Lau said on his YouTube channel that Li could have sold only 2 ports in Panama, but he decided to sell all, meaning that he is pessimistic about the long-term global trade environment. Well, what has he got to worry about? He's 96. There's no long-term for Li at this point. Lau says Li's decision seriously upsets Beijing. Yep. So, that's, people are like, well, capitalism is good and we got to make sure. No, capitalism puts all the power and the money in the hands of very select few people. And those very select few people end up making world-altering decisions because they have so much fucking money and so much power because of it. Look, I ain't against somebody, having a good life and, enjoying things and being able to buy shit, but, when the amount of money that you're bringing in affects the world, you might have to reconsider that shit. Meanwhile, over the weekend also, there was a tragic fire, I believe, at a nightclub in North Macedonia. And they had a service to mourn as thousands mourn the nightclub fire victims. North Macedonia has lowered flags to half-staff as thousands of people have gathered at memorials to mourn the 59 people killed in a nightclub blaze over the weekend. The fire broke out during a concert by a hip-hop duo called DNK at the Pulse Club in the town of Kokani, after about 3 a.m. local time on Sunday, when sparks from flares set the ceiling alight. Did Great White not teach us anything about fire pyrotechnics inside? Come on, folks. About 155 people were also injured, triggering an outpouring of grief in the small Balkan country. Authorities were investigating the flouting of license regulations and allegations of bribery linked to the nightclub, which was crammed with young revelers at double capacity when the fire tore through it. Authorities have so far arrested and detained about 20 people for questioning in connection with the fire, including government officials and the nightclub's manager. One of DNK singers, Andrzej Gorziewski, was killed, and the other, Vladimir Blazov, was injured, while a guitarist, a drummer, and a backup singer also died. The death toll may rise because 20 of the injured are in critical condition, Health Minister Arben Taravari said yesterday. Countries including Greece, Bulgaria, Serbia, and Turkey have accepted almost 50 patients with the most serious injuries for treatment, while several countries are also sending medical teams to North Macedonia, according to officials. All patients who have been transferred abroad are currently in stable condition. We hope it stays that way and that we will receive positive news from abroad, Taravari said. In the capital, Skopje, hundreds of people massed at a university in frigid rain for a student-led memorial ceremony, during which people observed several minutes of silence, laid flowers, and lit candles at a makeshift shrine. Emotions ran high for some. I think that this is not an accident, but literally direct murder due to all the breaches that are being done in the state. We cannot be silent all the time, no matter how afraid we are, Angela Zumbakova, a 19-year-old student of psychology, told the AFP news agency. The nightclub operated in substandard conditions. It does not have this and that, and people were making money from it. Who is responsible? Sasa Zhenik, a school teacher whose 15-year-old daughter escaped the fire with burns on her arms, told Reuters. A state coroner said the bodies were being brought for identification in batches from morgues due to the high number of people killed. In Kosani, dozens of people waited in line to sign books of condolences. We are all in shock, and I am shocked myself as a mother, as a person, as a president. President Gordana Davkova Siljanovska said in an address to the nation on Sunday night. Condolences also poured in from leaders around Europe, including the hospitalized Pope Francis. Yeah, apparently Pope Francis is, he's still alive, but, reporting from Kosani, Al Jazeera's Maja Blazevska said the people who had gathered in the city center to express their sadness had identified a culprit for the fire. They were blaming, as they said, Macedonia's corrupt system for this tragedy. North Macedonia's government ordered a sweeping 3-day inspection to be carried out at all nightclubs and cabarets across the country, starting yesterday. Public prosecutor Lupko Kosevsky said a preliminary inspection of the nightclub had revealed numerous safety code violations, including a lack of emergency exits, an insufficient number of fire extinguishers, and improper access for emergency vehicles. The fire caused the roof of the single-story building to partially collapse, revealing the charred remains of wooden beams and debris. The emissions are significant. I can confidently say this is a failure of the system, the prosecutor told reporters, also noting the lack of an overhead extinguisher system and fire alarms and the use of flammable materials to line the inside walls. Basically, it was a death trap. Kosevsky said his office was working to determine the criminal liability of a number of people for serious offenses against public security and other crimes. The individuals acted contrary to the regulations and technical rules of protection measures, thereby caused a danger to the life and work of people on a large scale, he said. So, yeah, like I said, I don't know if you guys remember, I can't remember how long ago that was, that band Great White. Basically, something similar happened. They had pyrotechnics inside, which is, what the fuck, a lack of emergency exits, and and people went to jail over that shit too. And I think a couple of members of the band died too. Very eerily similar to that. That's why, when you hear from your Republican pals who want to get rid of all these regulations, because it's costing businesses money. Well, when you get rid of regulations, you may save money in the short term, but people die. And then you end up paying out compensation or possibly going to jail yourselves because of that. So in the end, in the long run, are regulations bad? Maybe some of them are just like, could be modernized, but for the most part, safety's fucking safety. And I wouldn't feel comfortable working for any company that would just skirt regulations like that. There's no fucking way. Because if they don't care about that, that means they don't care about you as an employee either. So, in my absence, a lot of things happened. Like I said, old Popey, something happened to Popey. He got he got the crud. Maybe we'll check in on him on Friday and see what's up. But Canada has a new prime minister, and it's another person. It's another guy. It's this guy, as Canada's Carney visits France to seek reliable allies amid U.S. disputes. So Canada is getting fed up with Trumpy and his bullshit. Now he's looking to his pals overseas. Like, can you believe this guy? Canada's new Prime Minister, Mark Carney, has met with his French counterpart, President Emmanuel Macron, on his first official overseas visit to seek support from one of Canada's oldest allies as relations with the United States have plummeted. During a joint press conference on Monday at the Élysée Palace in Paris, Carney said it was important for Canada to reinforce its ties with reliable allies like France. I want to ensure that France and the whole of Europe works enthusiastically with Canada, the most European of non-European countries, and at the same time, a resolutely North American determined, like you, to maintain the most positive relations possible with the U.S., Carney said, as he had some delicious poutine. Isn't that what you guys eat up there, Prop? Don't you eat like that gravy and French fries and some other shit? However, his visit comes amid growing tensions with Fuckhead, who has imposed significant tariffs on Canadian goods. Canada has levied its own retaliatory tariffs. Dump has also repeatedly threatened to annex the country and turn it into the 51st U.S. state, infuriating Canadians. Carney flatly stated upon taking on the premiership that this would never happen, as did his predecessor, outgoing Zionist shitfuck Justin Trudeau. Oh, and don't forget Nazi lover too. While Macron did not address Trump's attacks on Canada, he said tariffs only bring about inflation. In the current international context, we want to be able to develop our most strategic projects with our closest, most loyal partners, said Pepe Le Pew, adding, "We are stronger together, better able to ensure the respect of our interests, the full exercise of our sovereignty." The fact that Carney chose to come to France and the UK for his overseas trip is highly symbolic. Normally, Canadian prime ministers would visit Washington first. The name Donald Trump was certainly not mentioned, but no doubt the U.S. president was very much on the minds of those two leaders, a president who is waging a tariffs war on both Canada and France and upturning traditional alliances. They just called him Ronald Stump, but they were like, wink, wink, wink. You know what we're saying, right? Yeah, so that's the thing. You know, when you piss off Canada, you know you fucked up like Dixon gravy. Is that what? Dixon gravy. Don't be saying that. That's not Putin. That's put it in. Sorry. But yeah, I think and Trump's only been president a couple months and he's already pissed off the whole world. Yeah, there's going to be World War III. It's going to be the U.S. against everybody else. Of course, you know, Trump's pissing off South Africa too, because sure, why not? Trump administration said South African ambassador has to leave the U.S. by Friday. He won't get his deposit back, unfortunately, for him, but he will sue in small claims court. The State Department says South Africa's ambassador to the U.S., who was declared persona non grata last week, has until Friday to leave the country. After Aquaman Marco Rubio determined that Ambassador Ibrahim Rasool was no longer welcome in the U.S. and posted his decision Friday on social media, South African embassy staff were summoned to the State Department and given a formal diplomatic note explaining the decision. Department spokesperson Tammy Bruce, she said Rasool's diplomatic privileges and immunities expired Monday and that he would be required to leave the U.S. by this Friday. South African Foreign Ministry spokesperson Crispin like Crispin Glover, said in a television interview on Monday that Rasool was still in the U.S. but would be leaving as soon as possible. Rubio announced his decision on the tweeters as he was flying back to the U.S. from a group of 7 foreign ministers meeting in Canada. In it, he accused Rasool of being a race-baiting politician, he said while staring into a mirror, who hates President Trump. His post linked to a story by the conservative Breitbart news site about a talk Rasool gave earlier Friday in Johannesburg as part of a South African think tank's webinar. Rasool, speaking by video conference, talked about actions taken by the Dump administration in the context of a United States where white people soon would no longer be in the majority. Another what do they call it? Lie. It is highly unusual for the U.S. to expel a foreign ambassador, although lower-ranking diplomats are far more frequently targeted with persona non grata status. Rubio's decision was the latest Trump administration fuck-up targeting South Africa. Trump signed an executive order last month halting funding to the country. It criticized the black-led South African government on multiple fronts, saying it is pursuing anti-white policies at home and supporting bad actors in the world like the Palestinian militant group Hamas and Iran. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa told reporters on Monday that Rasool would give him a report when he returned home. Ramaphosa said his government has noted the displeasure that has been expressed by the United States, and particularly about Rasool's remarks, but stressed that he believes South Africa was in the process of rebuilding its relationship with the U.S. This is a hiccup we are working on straightening out, he said. We will engage with the U.S. of America, the U.S. of America, the United States of America in a formal way, Ramaphosa said. We will do so with deep respect for them and for Dump as well. Our relationship with the U.S. is going to be put on an even keel, so I would like the people of South Africa not to have sleepless nights. Yeah. So Trump spreading that ill will all around the world. Why? Because fuck him, that's why. Who knows? He can't run for re-election again unless the United States somehow miraculously changes those laws. AIPAC ordered his ousting. Yeah, pretty much. And anything Trump orders, is pretty sure it's rubber stamped by AIPAC in the first place. Trump's been on this deportation binge, although I still don't think he's deported as many people as Biden did. But Trump defies U.S. court order, deports over 200 Venezuelans to El Salvador. And that's where it starts getting scary, when they start disobeying court orders like that. Dump has deported more than 200 Venezuelans to a high-security prison in El Salvador, despite a federal judge ordering their return to the United States. In a statement, the White House denied defying the court order while simultaneously asserting its right to ignore it. A single judge in a single city cannot direct the movements of an aircraft carrier full of foreign alien terrorists who were physically expelled from U.S. soil, said White House Press Secretary and dumb cunt Carolyn Leavitt. The controversy stems from President Dump's use of the Alien Enemies Act, a rarely invoked 18th century law. The law, infamous for its role in the internment of Japanese Americans during World War II, allows for the detention and removal of individuals from enemy nations. Trump attempted to apply this law to rapidly deport alleged members of Tren de Aragua, a notorious Venezuelan gang linked to violent crimes such as kidnapping and extortion. However, on Saturday evening, the U.S. District Judge James Boasberg issued a ruling temporarily blocking the administration from using the law for deportations. He argued that the statute applies only to hostile acts by a foreign country compared to war. Boasberg ordered that any flights carrying Venezuelan immigrants under the law be redirected back to the U.S., with his written order filed at 7:25 p.m. local time. But by that time, the deportations had already taken place. El Salvador's President Nayib Bukele reacted on the tweeters with a mocking post, "Oopsie, too late," alongside a laughing emoji. Glad he thinks it's funny. The post referenced a headline about the judge's order and was later shared by U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who thanked Bukele for his assistance and friendship, and said, "Ooh, sick burn, dude." The Dump administration acknowledged in a court filing on Sunday that some Venezuelans had already been deported before the judge's order, but did not specify how many. The ACLU, weak as well water, which has challenged the administration's use of the law, is now demanding assurances that no migrants were removed in violation of the order. If anyone was turned over to a foreign government after the court's order, then we would hope that the United States government would work with that foreign government to get the individuals back, said very naive ACLU attorney Lee Gellert. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security, the State Department, and the Salvadorian government have not responded to requests for comment. According to Bukele, the 238 deported men, alleged members of Tren de Aragua, have been transferred to El Salvador's Terrorism Confinement Center, a massive high-security prison capable of holding 40,000 inmates. Their detention is set for 1 year, though the term could be extended. Yes. Fuckery afoot everywhere, everywhere. Everywhere you go, there's fuckery. That's right. Come on, please, for the kids. I remember the travel bans, the Muslim travel bans from Dump Part 1. Yeah, well, they're making a comeback. As the revised U.S. travel ban could expand to more than 40 countries. How many countries are there in the world? Like 100, Yeah, that's a lot of countries. So, reports show a new travel ban on the horizon with slightly different iterations, according to media reports. Reuters reported yesterday that a forthcoming travel ban would affect citizens from 41 countries, according to an internal memo they had seen and sources they had spoken to who were close to the issue. The list is made up of 3 different categories. 1, countries that are banned outright. 2, countries with sharply restricted travel to the U.S. And 3, countries that have 60 days to address concerns. Reuters identified Afghanistan, Iran, Syria, Cuba, and North Korea as 5 of the 10 countries where citizens would be subject to a full visa suspension. According to an article in the New York Times last week, the full list includes Afghanistan, Bhutan, Cuba, Iran, Libya, North Korea, Somalia, Sudan, Syria, Yemen, and Venezuela. Seven of these countries, which were on different iterations of Trump's 2017 predominantly Muslim travel ban list, continue to remain on the banned list. These countries include Iran, Libya, North Korea, Somalia, Sudan, Syria, Yemen, and Venezuela. In the second group, Reuters listed Eritrea, Haiti, Laos, Myanmar, and South Sudan as 5 countries that would face partial suspensions. Such suspensions would impact tourist and student visas as well as other immigrant visas. Citizens who would also be on that list would face mandatory in-person interviews to receive visas. Reuters said a total of 26 countries feature in a third group that would have 60 days to address concerns, or they could be subject to a partial suspension. Such countries include Belarus, will you do the fandango, Pakistan, Turkmenistan, among others. The New York Times had Pakistan in the second group for partial suspensions. The lists have been developed in response to an executive order issued on January 20th by Trump the dump, giving the State Department 60 days to identify countries for which vetting and screening information is so deficient as to warrant a partial or full suspension on the admission of nationals from those countries to, quote, protect its citizens from aliens who intend to commit terrorist attacks, threaten our national security, espouse hateful ideology, or otherwise exploit the immigration laws for malevolent purposes. In other words, the United States doesn't want the competition. A full report and a final list of countries are expected this week. Dump invited outrage when he issued a Muslim travel ban within a week of taking office during his first term. Back in 2017, the countries on his original list were 7 Muslim-majority countries, Iran, Iraq, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, Syria, and Yemen. The order also indefinitely suspended the entry of Syrian refugees. This order affected individuals regardless of their immigration status, including green card holders and those with employment-based visas. Travelers with valid visas and permanent residency were denied entry. Following large-scale protests and chaos at airports, courts pushed back on the ban, leading to the first ban being blocked by a temporary restraining order in Washington v. Trump in February 2017. 3 more iterations of the ban followed, leading to numerous lawsuits filed in federal court against the Trump administration. One of the most successful lawsuits was Trump versus Hawaii, a lawsuit on behalf of the state of Hawaii, where the Muslim Association of Hawaii, Dr. Ismail El-Sheikh, told, and 2 John Doe plaintiffs challenged the various iterations of the ban. After Trump issued the second iteration of the ban in March of that year, banning people from Iran, Libya, North Korea, Syria, Venezuela, Yemen, and Somalia, the Hawaii District Court issued a nationwide injunction against the second version of the ban, which was affirmed by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals on June 12, 2017. The court prohibited the government from enforcing the ban against foreign nationals who possess a bona fide relationship with a person or entity in the U.S. But the government interpreted that ruling narrowly, issuing new guidance that would still ban grandparents, grandchildren, aunts, uncles, nieces, nephews, cousins, brother-in-law, and sister-in-law, fiancés, and any other extended family members on the theory that they are not close family. If you've been around my place around Thanksgiving, you might be like, may have a point there. In July 2017, the Hawaii District Court ruled that this definition represents the antithesis of common sense. Oh boy, that should be our national motto at this point. Put that on the money. Instead of God we trust, we should put and the United States, the antithesis of common sense. It prevented the government from enforcing it. After a government appeal, the Ninth Circuit largely left the district court's order relating to travel in place while staying part of the order relating to refugees. Trump issued a third iteration of the ban in September of that year, and the lawsuit returned to Hawaii District Court. The court ruled that it violated the Immigration and Nationality Act and enjoined enforcement of core portions of the ban. The Ninth Circuit affirmed, but the Supreme Court permitted Muslim Ban 3.0 to go into effect as appeals progressed. In January 2018, the Supreme Court agreed to hear the case, and it was heard on April of that year, and its opinion released on June 26th of that year. The court reversed the grant of a preliminary injunction after a 5-4 decision. In doing so, it rejected both statutory and constitutional challenges to the ban. Despite the litany of evidence that the ban was unconstitutionally motivated by anti-Muslim animus, the majority said it could reasonably be understood to result from a justification independent of unconstitutional grounds, accepting at face value the government's contention that the policy came after a neutral worldwide view of countries' capacities to support the vetting of their nationals. The third iteration of the ban imposed full visa restrictions on citizens from 8 nations, 6 of them predominantly Muslim. These countries included Chad, Iran, Libya, North Korea, Syria, Venezuela, Yemen, and Somalia. Iranian nationals were allowed to enter under valid student, the F&M visas, and exchange visitor visa, the J notification, although such individuals were subject to enhanced screening and vetting requirements. In April 2018, the administration removed travel restrictions on Chad. In January 2020, a fourth travel ban was instituted and included additional countries such as Eritrea, Kyrgyzstan, Myanmar, Nigeria, Sudan, and Tanzania, which restricted applicants to immigrants from those countries, but did not restrict entry by non-immigrants. Many have voiced concerns that the new travel ban could impact green card holders from banned countries in the same way it was first instituted in January 2017, when green card holders were prevented from entering the country. Immigration lawyers are warning green card holders from countries facing a ban to delay traveling outside the U.S. until policies are confirmed. On his first day in office, Trump laid out a blueprint that would enable him to deport any foreign national who has expressed pro-Palestinian sentiments, we'll get more to that here pretty soon, or participated in pro-Palestinian demonstrations in an executive order entitled, "I'm a cocksucking piece of shit." Protecting the United States from foreign terrorists and other national security and public safety threats. Like the truth, that's a threat. Delicious truth. It's the sugar in my coffee. The order also asked for enhanced screening measures for all aliens seeking admission to the U.S. The same month, he also implemented the executive order, additional measures to combat anti-Semitism, or AMCAS, which allows federal agencies to use all available and appropriate legal tools to prosecute, remove, or otherwise hold to account the perpetrators of unlawful anti-Semitic harassment and violence. Immigration attorney Eric Lee, who represents several university students who have faced expulsion in cases related to pro-Palestine activism, said that green card holders would be impacted in an interview with Middle East Eye. Taken together, these two executive orders essentially ban all non-citizens, including green card holders, from criticizing the U.S. government, its institutions, or the state of Israel on penalty of deportation. Keep your mouth shut, and maybe you can stay. Earlier this month, the administration said it was revoking the green card of Palestinian graduate and activist Mahmoud Khalil, who played a prominent role in the Columbia University student protests over the past year. He's currently being held in a detention center in Louisiana. Last week, in advance of the new travel ban, the Trump administration began retroactively canceling visas of Libyan students, according to a news report. In the New Arab, American embassies in multiple countries notified some visa holders, including those already in the United States, that their visas have been revoked. These individuals were instructed to report to their respective U.S. embassies for further interviews. And it's all part of controlling the narrative, right? You know, and intimidating these people. They say, hey, look, you know, if you speak up about, you know, if you're pro-Palestine or you're saying, you know, you're criticizing Israel, you got to go, right? So all the free speech folks on the right, where are you at? Why aren't y'all calling this guy out? We sure as fuck called out Biden and all those shitheads when they were suppressing people's rights. You know, there's more than just the Second Amendment in the Constitution, by the way. Just so you know, there's the one, you know, it's the second for a reason, because there's a First Amendment. There's a First Amendment that people send. It's kind of like they say, oh, well, that movie sucked. The sequel was much better. No, that's not how it works. I'm sorry. It's very rare you get some Guam news these days. CBC voter, what's up? Going? Happy Tuesday to you, my friend. And Yipper's in the house too. Make sense common again. I know, right? What has it though? Has it been common? I don't know. I'm just saying. Guam rarely getting some play, but you know what? On this show, we're like Visa. We're everywhere. So, Guam at decolonization crossroads with resolution on U.S. statehood. Maybe Guam will be a state before Canada. Wouldn't that be nice? Debate on Guam's future as a U.S. territory has intensified with its legislature due to vote on a non-binding resolution to become a U.S. state amid mounting Pacific geostrategic tensions and expansionist declarations by the Trump administration. Located closer to Beijing than Hawaii, Guam serves as a key strategic asset known as the tip of the spear. I know a few ladies that have heard me say that. Hey, ladies, you... Wait, what? With 10,000 military personnel, an air base for F-35 fighters and B-2 bombers, and home port for Virginia-class nuclear submarines. The small U.S. territory of 166,000 people is also listed by the UN for decolonization, and last year became an associate member at the Pacific Islands Forum. Local Senator William A. Parkinson introduced the resolution to the legislature last Wednesday and called for Guam to be fully integrated into the American Union, possibly as the 51st state. We are standing in a moment of history where two great empires are standing face to face with each other about to go to war, Parkinson said at a press conference on Thursday. We have to be real about what's going on in this part of the world. We are a tiny island, but we are too strategically important to be left alone. Stay with America, or do we let ourselves be absorbed by China? His resolution states the decision must be built upon the informed consent of the people of Guam through a referendum. Parkinson's resolution comes as Trump advocates territorially expansionist policies, including towards the strategically located Danish-ruled autonomous territory of Greenland and America's northern neighbor, Canada. This one moment in time, this one moment in history, the stars are aligning so that the geopolitics of the U.S. favor statehood for Guam, Parkinson said, "This is an opportunity we cannot pass up." There he is right there. He just wants free stuff. That's all he wants. As a territory, Guam residents are American citizens, but they cannot vote for the U.S. president, and their lone delegate to Congress has no voting power on the floor. The U.S. acquired Guam along with Puerto Rico in 1898 after winning the Spanish-American War, and both remain unincorporated territories to this day. Independence advocates and representatives from the Guam Commission on Decolonization regularly testify at the UN's Decolonization Committee, where the island has been listed as a non-self-governing territory since 1946. Commission on Decolonization Executive Director Melvin Juan Patborja said he was not opposed to statehood, but is concerned if any decision on Guam's status was left to the U.S. Yeah, I'd worry about that too. Decolonization is the right of the colonized, he said while attending Parkinson's press conference, the Pacific Daily News reported. It's counterintuitive to say that we're seeking a path forward, a path out of this inequity, and then turn around and put it right back in the hands of our colonizer. Old Man Barker, what's up? Good to see you. Good to see you. Good to see you. Hope you're doing well. No matter what status any of us prefer, ultimately that is not for any one of us to decide, but it is up to a collective decision that we have to come to, and the only way to do it is via referendum, he said. Reports Quam News. Referendums, yeah. And I think that's the future of America, too, is once we finally break free of the chains of a national government per se, state referendums are going to be the way to go. With the geostrategic competition between the U.S. and China in the Pacific, Guam has become increasingly significant in supporting American naval and air operations, especially in the event of a conflict over Taiwan or in the South China Sea. The two U.S. bases have seen Guam's economy become heavily reliant on military investments and tourism. The Defense Department holds about 25% of Guam's land and is preparing to spend billions to upgrade the island's military infrastructure as another 5,000 American Marines relocate there from Japan's Okinawa Islands. Guam is also within range of Chinese and North Korean ballistic missiles, and the U.S. has trialed a defense system with the first test held in December. The moment in history for statehood may also be defined by the Dump administration's spending cuts, Guam Governor Lou Leon Guerrero warned in her State of the Island address on Wednesday. The island has in recent years leveraged the increased military presence to demand federal assistance, and the territory's treasury relies on at least $500 million in annual funding. Let us be clear about this. Guam cannot be the linchpin of American security in the Asian Pacific if nearly 14,000 of our residents are without shelter, because housing aid to Guam is cut, or if 36,000 of our people lose access to Medicaid and Medicare coverage, keeping them healthy, alive, and out of poverty, Guerrero said. Parkinson's proposed legislative resolutions calls for an end to 125-plus years of U.S. colonial uncertainty. The people of Guam, as rightful stewards of their homeland, must assert their inalienable right to self-determination, states the resolution, including that there be a full examination of statehood or enhanced autonomous status for Guam. Granting Guam equal political status would signal unequivocally that Guam is an integral part of the U.S., deterring adversaries who might otherwise perceive Guam as a mere expendable outpost. If adopted by the Guam legislature, the non-binding resolution would be transmitted to the White House. A local statute enacted in 2000 for a political status plebiscite on statehood, independence, or free association had become bogged down in U.S. courts. Neil Weir, a former Guam resident and co-director of Right to Democracy, said the self-determination process must be centered on what the people of Guam want, not just what's best for U.S. national security. You would think, right? Right to Democracy does not take a position on political status other than to reject the undemocratic and colonial status quo, Weir said on behalf of the nonprofit organization that advocates for rights and self-determination in U.S. territories. People can have different views on what is the best solution to this problem, but we should all be in agreement that the continued undemocratic rule of millions of people in U.S. territories is wrong and needs to end. He said the 250th anniversary of the U.S. Declaration of Independence next year can open a new venue for a conversation about key concepts such as the consent of the governed involving Guam and other U.S. territories. You know, you kind of forget about Guam in the mix. You know, you just you take Guam for granted. But yeah, they are an integral part there, and they have a lot of decisions to make. Do they want to be fully annexed by the United States as the 51st state? Steve Wolfbrand, what's up? Good to see you. Good to see you. Good to see you. Kill your egregores. I see you too with 9 eyes. But in the long run, I mean, damned if you do, damned if you don't, I think, for Guam. But in any event, that should be up to the people. And I guess we'll see what happens. Meanwhile, back here, lots of storms ripped through the United States over the past few days as storms weave a trail of destruction across the U.S. A powerful storm system that unleashed devastating tornadoes, dust storms, and wildfires across the central and southern United States over the weekend has left at least 39 people dead. The weakening but still unpredictable weather system, which caused widespread destruction, displacing hundreds from their homes and shattering communities, moved into the southeastern and mid-Atlantic regions of the U.S. Yesterday. While the system appeared to have calmed, it still brought thunderstorms, hail, damaging winds, and a continued risk of tornadoes. Forecasters issued warnings for hazardous winds stretching from Florida to New Jersey, while heavy rain threatened areas across New York and New England. The U.S. National Weather Service issued a tornado watch early on Monday for parts of North Carolina and Virginia, warning residents of wind gusts potentially reaching 70 miles per hour and hailstones the size of ping pong balls. And I don't know if you've ever been in a hailstorm. Ping pong ball about yay big, right? You imagine all these fuckers just tearing through your shit. The storm front, which began on Friday, was declared a rare high-risk event by meteorologists. Such extreme weather is not uncommon in March, but the system inflicted extraordinary damage over a widespread area. In Tylertown, Mississippi, entire neighborhoods were left in ruins as tornadoes snapped towering trees and obliterated homes. Governor Tater Tot, confirmed that 6 people had lost their lives and more than 200 residents were displaced. Not a fan of Tate Reeves. Piece of shit. Wind-driven, he's the same guy that won't help Jackson and their water problems. Wind-driven wildfires tore through parts of Texas and Oklahoma. Authorities reported that 130 fires has been recorded across Oklahoma alone, damaging or destroying nearly 400 homes. Governor Kevin Stitt said 2 people were killed in the state due to the fires and extreme weather. The devastation continued in Texas, where wildfires forced evacuations. 3 deaths were reported due to dust storm-related vehicle crashes. In Kansas, the lack of visibility caused a multi-vehicle pileup. 8 people were killed in the collision involving at least 50 vehicles. Over central Alabama, tornadoes killed 3 people, including an 82-year-old woman, as they swept across the state. In Troy, a local recreation center, that's Troy, Alabama, acting as a shelter, was damaged overnight, forcing residents to seek alternative accommodation. In Arkansas, which was also hit hard, Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders, you know her, that creepy chick from that movie, what was it, The Ring? Isn't she that chick that crawls out of the TV? 7 days. Confirmed 3 deaths, prompting the deployment of National Guard troops to assist in rescue and recovery efforts. See, this in times like these, this is when the libertarians are like, what? Money, please, money, please. President Dump said the White House was monitoring the storms. It wouldn't give a shit about, would assist state and local officials in the recovery. As the storm system continued to move northeast, residents across affected states remained on high alert. Emergency services and volunteers worked tirelessly to assess the damage and assist communities in the aftermath of one of the year's most severe weather events. This guy. Look at these pictures. So you got this guy here. Look at this. That's what these storms do. I mean, from the ground level, it looks bad, but when you look at it from this, look at this. It's just insane what these storms do. And they're getting more powerful too. Whether it's man-made or not, we have to realize that this shit's getting worse. And we're probably not helping things. To be honest, I don't want to be that guy and, like the Greta Thunberg or whatever, but, we're probably attributing to it somewhat, right? That's central Alabama. And just look at those trees. Just snapped those trees off like they were toothpicks sticking out of the ground. Insane. And these are just regular ass houses. If you're in a trailer park, forget about it. You even hear there's bad weather coming, you just get the fuck out of there, or just not get in a trailer at all. That's in Oklahoma right there. So, today is also the anniversary of the deadliest tornado ever recorded in U.S. history, as it ripped through Midwestern states 100 years ago today. So from Logan's school top floor, 11-year-old Othella Sylvie should have been able to see her house easily. It was less than 2 blocks away. But after a monstrous tornado ripped through the Illinois town of Murfreesboro on March 18th, 1925, Othella saw nothing but flattened wasteland. She couldn't tell which direction was home, said Othella's daughter, 81-year-old Sylvia Carville. I had a similar situation when I came home right after Hurricane Katrina. I was down on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, a place I knew like the back of my hand. I was a coast rat. We drive up and down the coast. We knew all these places, all these antebellum homes along Highway 90. And when I got down there, all them shits were gone. And I was like, where are we? I don't even know where we're at. The deadliest twister in recorded U.S. history struck 100 years ago today, touching down in southeastern Missouri and tearing up everything in its 219-mile path for nearly 4 hours through southern Illinois and into Indiana. It left 695 people dead and more than 2,000 injured, not counting the casualties from at least 7 other twisters that the main storm spawned, which spun off through Kentucky and into Alabama. Modern standards qualify the so-called tri-state tornado as an F5, a mile-wide funnel with wind speeds greater than 260 miles per hour. 260 miles per hour! Perhaps the best evidence of its destructive handiwork was found on the Logan School grounds. A wooden board measuring 4 feet long by 8 inches wide was driven so deeply into the trunk of a maple tree that it could hold the weight of a man. I mean, the wind put this board, this big-ass board, into a tree, returning it home. It's on display this month as part of the Jackson County Historical Society's centennial commemoration of the disaster. 200 mile per hour winds. It was a mile wide, but the force that it took to put that pine board into that maple tree, it really puts it all into perspective, said Mary Rusling, the coordinator of the 6-day remembrance. To have one item that was witness to the force of those winds is a story all its own. The atmospheric stew that gave birth to the ferocious cataclysm was literally a perfect storm. A surface low-pressure system located over the Arkansas-Missouri border moved northeast, blending with a warm front moving north, according to Christine Walgos, warning coordination meteorologist for the National Weather Service. That churn provided the warmth, the instability, the moisture, which, when married perfectly, produced long-track violent tornadoes. Adding to the terror was the lack of notice. There was no reliable storm forecasting in 1925 and no warning system anyway. Yeah, so no tornado sirens. There was no National Weather Service that had radars and stuff like that. All they had was they looked off to the west and went, looking a little dark out there, and didn't even know what it was until it was right up on them, and then you're scrambling to find shelter, she said. The storm took out 40% of the city of Murfreesboro. 97 miles southeast of St. Louis. Its 234 deaths were the most of any municipality, with entire neighborhoods flattened. Other towns were virtually obliterated too, including Annapolis, Missouri, Gorham, Illinois, and Griffith, Indiana. The Mobile and Ohio railroad yards, employing close to 1,100, were wiped out. At the Twister's next stop, it ravaged the DeSoto School, killing 38 children. And then there's some sheet music for After the Tornado is Over, and morbid dirge written locally reflects the mood of the odious aftermath. I once had a home sweet home here, with family so kind and dear. The Red Cross tells me they are dead among the debris straight ahead. Death seems to come to every door, the strong and the weak and the rich and the poor. In Murfreesboro, Pullman rail cars arrived to house visiting medical professionals and cleanup crews. The Red Cross supplied tents for the homeless. With reports that the Sylvie family had been killed and their home destroyed, Othella and her younger sister Helen Sylvie, 7 years old, were shipped to Carbondale as orphans. However, it was their grandparents who lived a block away who had died. Carville said the sisters were eventually reunited with their parents. There's all kinds of chaos. You think there's chaos when these storms happen now, but when you don't have the information ahead of time, it's really a nightmare. The city rebuilt. Othello Sylvie's family erected a home identical to the one that had been leveled. First, they built a chicken coop, which supplied not only their primary dietary staple for months, but their shelter until the primary residence was finished, Carville said. To this day, the west side of Murfreesboro is peppered with small backyard structures that were temporary quarters until families could rebuild larger homes at the front of their lots. Dozens of families who toughed it out remain in Murfreesboro, Resling said. Jackson County Historical Society President Laura Cates Duncan said the commemoration honors those who died, but also celebrates the resilience of those who carried on. They could have gone elsewhere, but they wanted to stay here, Duncan said. Their roots were here. And that's the thing, too. It's like, a lot of these places like that constantly get devastated by, storms like this, particularly those areas in Tornado Alley. That's their home. They don't want to leave their home. But at the same time, they're getting shit hammered by these fucking storms, That was 100 years ago today. 260 miles an hour? Jesus Christ, was that right? I couldn't even. That's like wind on Jupiter. That's some crazy shit right there. Finally, in the news block, a little maybe as the YR4 asteroid likely to miss Sudan and possibly Earth, following NASA probability scare. So this thing's about as big as a football field, so you know. The YR4 asteroid, which scientists said had a realistic chance of hitting planet Earth, now appears to be moving off course, to the relief of many worried about the possible devastating effects impact could have. Among the countries YR4 could hit was Sudan, the site of many asteroid impacts in the past, with NASA projecting the possible date of December 22nd, 2032. After scientists put the chances of the 40 to 100 meter space rock making impact with Earth at a worrying 3.1% earlier this month, the odds have been sharply reduced to less than 1%. Last week, the space agency said the chances of impact are now just 0.28% after a worrying rise in the probability over the last 2 months. Despite this, the increase of it hitting the moon went up from 0.8% to 1%. Scientists estimated that if it hit the Earth, it could have the equivalent power of 15 million tons of TNT. They calculated that northern South America, the Pacific Ocean, southern Asia, the Arabian Sea, or sub-Saharan Africa were possible zones, areas of impact, with Sudan being one possible candidate. One of Sudan's most recent experiences with asteroids was in 2008, when the 4.1 meter wide 2008 TC3 asteroid exploded about 37 kilometers above Sudan, leaving fragments scattered across the Nubian desert. A meteoroid is a fragment of an asteroid or comet that travels through space. When it enters Earth's atmosphere, it can fragment into smaller pieces as it burns up, creating a meteor. The 600 meteorites that struck Sudan, known as Al-Mahada Sitta, marked the first time scientists successfully predicted an asteroid impact before it entered Earth's atmosphere, though they were slightly off in pinpointing the final impact site. Al-Mahada Sitta, as the meteorite became known, sparked a wave of scavengers searching for fragments, each containing thousands of micro-diamonds and other precious minerals, fetching huge sums on the market. Of course, it's like, we gotta go get that money. The rock was said to belong to a lost planet that was one of the first bodies to orbit the Earth millions of years ago. So there you have it. We're safe for now, but the moon might be fucked. Maybe. But if it hits the moon, I don't think it's going to... I mean, it's not that big. Like I said, it's the size of a football field. But if it hits the moon, it's probably going to make a nice little crater. And, maybe it'll open the hatch. Because, the moon is actually a spaceship that brought all of us here way long ago. You don't believe me? I'm probably making that up. Or am I? Folks, it's the end of an era. As this next story coming up is kind of a twofer propaganda-wise. Who's the real propagandist? Is it Trump? Or is it outlets like Voice of America, Radio Free Europe, that kind of thing? One never knows, but maybe we'll find out soon.
The sharing of biased and
False news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish things they think are true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
So this from the Libertarian Institute. They got a fundraiser going. It's their yearly fundraiser. If you want to help them out, they're trying to raise 60,000 smackers. A little over halfway there, so if you want to support them, that will work too. Trump moves to shut down Voice of America state media outlets. Dump has issued an executive order that will dismantle Voice of America, Radio Free Europe, Radio Free Asia, and other U.S. state media outlets. A press release from the White House said that the outlets have adopted an increasingly progressive agenda. Oh, progress sucks. On Friday, the president signed an executive order instructing the non-statutory components and functions of the following governmental entities shall be eliminated to the maximum extent consistent with applicable law, and such entities shall reduce the performance of their statutory functions and associated personnel to the minimum presence and function required by law. The United States Agency for Global Media and the Woodrow Wilson International Center for Scholars were among the 7 agencies facing closure. The U.S. Agency for Global Media runs Voice of America, Radio Free Europe, and Radio Free Asia. In a press release, the White House quoted longtime Voice of America staffer Dan Robinson, who claimed the outlet had adopted a progressive bias. I've monitored the agency's bureaucracy along with many of its reporters and concluded that it has essentially become a hubris-filled rogue operation, often reflecting a leftist bias aligned with partisan national media, he said. It sought to avoid accountability for violations in journalistic standards and mismanagement. Trump recently appointed Carrie Lake as the head of Voice of America. Now she's out of a job. The Washington Post expects the executive order to lead to 3,500 employees of the state media outlets to be canned. The USAGM outlets are not allowed by law to broadcast in the U.S. because they are Washington-funded propaganda. The outlets were founded during World War II or the Cold War to spread information in nations deemed enemies to the U.S., and that's by Kyle Anzalone. He always has this huge-ass picture of himself there. Kyle Anzalone sees you while you sleep at night. He comforts you when you are sad. So, yeah. So they're shutting those things down. I don't know. I don't really have a dog in that hunt because they really are just propaganda anyway. And I think the world has pretty much figured out that, they're propaganda too. So, yeah. So that's one thing I don't really care if they get rid of, I don't know, but still, it's like the reason why they're getting rid of it is not really like the real reason they should be getting rid of it. I don't know. So, college likes scaring kids these days, as Columbia warns journalism students to stay silent on Gaza or risk arrest. Dun, 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 dun. Just days after U.S. agents arrested former Columbia University student and pro-Palestine activist Mahmoud Khalil, university officials urged foreign faculty and journalism students to be cautious when discussing Israel's war on Gaza, according to the New York Times. During a private meeting with journalism students last week, adjunct professor and First Amendment lawyer Stuart Carl advised non-U.S. citizens to avoid publicly commenting on those topics. If you have a social media page, make sure it's not filled with commentary on the Middle East, he reportedly warned. Dean of Columbia's journalism school, Jelani Cobb, echoed the concern after a Palestinian student objected, reportedly telling students, "Nobody can protect you. These are dangerous times." The meeting followed increasing pressure from the Trump administration on the university, including a crackdown on pro-Palestinian activism and Khalil's detainment by federal authorities. Khalil was arrested by ICE agents March 8th at his university-owned apartment. The arrest was carried out following an order by Marco Rubio to revoke his student visa and green card. The Trump administration has accused Khalil, who's played a prominent role in pro-Palestinian demonstrations at the school last year, of engaging in activities aligned with Hamas, though no evidence has been provided. He is currently being held at an ICE detention center in the middle of hell. President Donald Trump has defended the detention, saying that Khalil's case is the first of many to come as his administration moves to crack down on those who join protests against Israel's war on the Gaza Strip. A video released by Khalil's attorney on Friday showed the moment federal agents arrested him in the lobby of his apartment building. The footage captures Khalil calmly complying with officers as his wife, Noura Abdallah, pleads for information on his whereabouts. Abdallah, an American citizen who is 8 months pregnant, demanded that the agents identify themselves, to which one responded, "We don't give our names." That's why you don't give your names to the fucking cops either. When they ask you your name, you tell them, "Oh, my name? Yeah, fuck off. That's my name. Fuck J off." Khalil's attorneys argue that his arrest for exercising his First Amendment rights, speaking up in defense of Palestinians in Gaza, is politically motivated and part of a broader crackdown on pro-Palestinian demonstrations. Meanwhile, Cornell students sue Trump to stop deportation of pro-Palestine student activists. There he is. A British graduate student suspended for his pro-Palestine activism at Cornell University is suing Dump to stop his attempt at deporting international students and scholars who support Palestine and protest against the war on Gaza. Mamadou Tal has joined forces with a fellow graduate student, a scholar at Cornell University, and the American Arab Anti-Discrimination Committee to file a lawsuit challenging Trump's executive orders, which Tal has described as a threat to millions in the U.S. and worldwide. Today, on the advice of counsel, we have sought a national injunction against Trump's executive orders. This is because we cannot allow international students, faculty, immigrants, and people with conscience to live in perpetual fear, with the threat of illegal detention hanging over our heads, he said in a statement. The lawsuit filed on Saturday in the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of New York seeks a nationwide temporary restraining order to block the enforcement of 2 executive orders signed by Trump, protecting the United States from foreign terrorists and other national security and public safety threats, and additional measures to combat anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism. There you go. Last year, Cornell University suspended Tal and threatened to revoke the 31-year-old's visa to study in the UK after student protesters shut down a careers fair where 2 arms companies, Boeing and L3 Harris, were present at the fair. Tal came to Cornell University to study for a PhD in Africana Studies, the study of Black people in Africa, the African diaspora, and around the globe. During his suspension, Tal was banned from campus and not allowed to access the university's buildings. The suspension meant that Tal was banned from attending Muslim prayers on campus. However, after weeks of legal challenges and student protests held in Tal's name, Cornell University agreed to reinstate him as a postgraduate student and reduce some restrictions imposed on him. On March 9th, former Columbia University student Mahmoud Khalil, we told you about that, what has been happening to him. Tal's lawyer, Eric Lee, who is leading the challenge with Tal, criticized Trump's restrictions as designed to chill speech around Palestine and the situation in Gaza. He's absolutely right. That's exactly what this is. This lawsuit aims to vindicate the rights of all non-citizens and citizens in the U.S., but the courthouse is only one arena in this fight, Lee said. We appeal to the population. Stand up and exercise your First Amendment rights by actively and vigorously opposing the danger of dictatorship. Get in the fucking streets. Shut the shit down. As we prepare to mark the 250th anniversary of the American Revolution, next year, recall the words from the Declaration of Independence, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter it or to abolish it. That's why we supposedly have amendments to a constitution, right? Watering the tree of liberty, as they say. Observers say the targeting of university protesters is calculated to send a chilling effect across the country. In the wake of the political backlash, universities like NYU and Harvard have scrambled to adopt the controversial IHRA definition of anti-Semitism, which is basically everybody who even says anything bad about Israel is anti-Semitic, as they come under federal scrutiny. Since coming into office, Trump ordered a pause on federal grants and loans, which a judge has since blocked. The AP reported in February that Trump directive has universities nationwide scrambling to determine how a funding freeze could affect their research programs, students, and faculty. Columbia University has already lost $400 million in federal funding, with more at risk unless they meet a number of demands from the Trump administration. And that's not new either. Back in the 80s, Reagan did that with the states. He said, we'll withhold all your federal highway funding if you don't raise your drinking age to 21, which pissed me off because I was just about to turn 18 when that shit went down. And then I had to wait 3 more years to drink legally. But that didn't stop Daddy from getting a little nip before then. Hoot, X's for eyes. Meanwhile, deported Brown University doctor allegedly showed support for Hezbollah leader, DH says. This is from CBS, so you can tell the slant there. She basically got deported. But the information's here. We can pick through it. Federal judge on Monday canceled a hearing for a doctor who was denied re-entry to the U.S. and sent back to Lebanon despite his earlier order to keep her in the country. This is the scary part. Like I said, we're dumping his boys or starting to ignore these judges' rulings like this. I mean, I don't mind ignoring a judge's ruling if the judge's ruling is stupid, but in these cases, it's like, no. Immigration officials said that they had found photos of Rasha Alawi's phone that appeared to depict on her phone that appeared to depict Hezbollah fighters, and she allegedly told them she had attended the funeral of a Hezbollah leader on religious purposes, not because he was a swell leader. Lawyers for the government said the doctor had already departed the United States by the time Customs and Border Protection officers at Boston's Logan Airport received notice of Judge Leo Sorkin's instructions, the judge said in a brief yesterday. Alawi, a Rhode Island transplant doctor and assistant professor at Brown University, was detained on Thursday in Boston after visiting family in Lebanon, her cousin claimed in a lawsuit challenging Alawi's detention. Sorkin ordered on Friday that Alawi be kept in the U.S. and brought to a court hearing on Monday. He wrote Monday morning that Dr. Alawi is now in Lebanon. The Department of Homeland Security said in a statement on Monday that Alloway had told Customs and Border Protection officers that she traveled to Beirut to attend the funeral of Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah. A visa is a privilege, not a right. Glorifying and supporting terrorists who kill Americans is ground for visa issuance to be denied. This is common sense security. The DHS statement continued. This is why I have this particular segment in the this thing in the propaganda watch, because you have to see how CBS News tries to twist this, right? According to court documents filed by the government, Alloway was questioned by a CBP officer about photos on her phone that appeared to depict Hezbollah fighters. Alloway allegedly said they were shared by others within WhatsApp messaging groups of friends and family. Alloway allegedly said her interest in Nasrallah was in his standing as a religious figure within the Shia Muslim community as opposed to his role as a political leader, according to the documents. CPB spokesman Hilton Beckham said those who promote extremist ideologies or carry terrorist propaganda are inadmissible to the United States, plain and simple. Officers act swiftly to deny entry to those who glorify terrorist organizations, advocate violence, or openly support terrorist leaders and commemorate their deaths, Beckham said, firmly with a Zionist cock in his ass. Anyone found with extremist materials linked to a U.S.-designated terrorist group will be removed. An attorney for Alloway's cousin did not immediately reply to questions sent by CBS News. On Sunday, Sorkin ordered the government to explain before the now-canceled Monday hearing why Alloway was removed. Lawyers for her family claimed the government willfully disobeyed his order by sending Alloway outside the U.S. The government made a filing under seal, and Sorkin said in his latest order that the filing included an affidavit from a CPB watch commander, and government attorneys said at no time would CBP take a court order seriously or fail to abide by a court's order. Alloway has been in the U.S. since 2018 on an H-1B visa, a transplant nephrology specialist. She was involved with the care of patients before, during, and after receiving kidney transplants. A lawsuit filed by Alloway's cousin claims she was issued a visa on March 11th, and her family has not been provided with information explaining why Alloway was detained or removed. President Trump's crackdown on immigration has recently targeted university-affiliated visa holders, and you know that whole thing. In a statement, Customs and Border Protection said, arriving aliens bear the burden of establishing admissibility to the United States. CPB went on to say that its officer adhered to strict protocols to identify and stop threats using rigorous screening, vetting, strong law enforcement partnerships, and keen inspectional skills to keep threats out of the country. And to keep the truth out of your waiting ears. Anti-American? U.S. questions UN agencies, international aid groups. Come on. God damn. All right. Motherfucker. A list of 36 questions was sent to small and large organizations alike as part of Washington's ongoing review of its vast foreign aid spending. I don't think we have ever received anything like this, said a staff member at a large humanitarian organization speaking on condition of anonymity. While the questionnaire obtained by AFP includes typical donor queries about things like cost-effectiveness strategies, others seem crafted to determine if grantees conform with the politics of Donald Trump's administration. One question asked if organizations had received any funding from China, Russia, Cuba, or Iran, and for confirmation that there are no DEI elements of the project, referring to diversity, equity, and inclusion, Trump's boogeyman. They were also asked to confirm that this is not a climate or environmental justice project and that it takes appropriate measures to protect women and to defend against gender ideology. Organizations were asked if they worked with entities associated with communist, socialist, or totalitarian parties, or any party that espouses anti-American beliefs or anti-oligarchical beliefs. Authoritarianism or anti-American regimes, ironically, is a pretty accurate description of the Trump administration. Phil Lynch, head of the International Services for Human Rights, told AFP, He said the organization had declined to respond to the questionnaire, adding, "Our grants from the U.S. government have been terminated." ISRH was among a long line of organizations ranging from NGOs to UN agencies, the Red Cross, and other large international humanitarian actors that told AFP they had received the questionnaire. Many voiced shocked at the tone of the queries sent out following Trump's decision immediately upon his return to power in January to freeze virtually all foreign aid pending the review. A sudden about-face by the country that traditionally has given most has sent the entire humanitarian community into a tailspin. It's fair to send out a questionnaire to people you give money to, but this questionnaire doesn't seem to be adapted to the humanitarian sector, said a high-level official with a large international aid organization, speaking on the low. What we find problematic is that there are a lot of questions around certain political objectives. Lucica Detui, head of Stop TB, which also received the questionnaire, stressed that donor country had the prerogative to look at the way their funding is being used. She said her organization, which has traditionally received around half of its funding from the United States, has responded, confirming, among others, that no U.S. funds would go to work related to DEI. She, meanwhile, voiced hope that funds from other donors would allow such work to continue. Other organizations said they had debated whether or not to respond as they felt drawn between the threat of losing vital funding and feared they could be construed as sacrificing their principles. Whatever the financial implications, ISHR will not resolve from its principled commitment to human rights and the rule of law, as well as to values such as diversity, equity, and equality and justice, Lynch said. A large international aid organization said it had opted to respond, but not without reservations. If we are seen as a tool for American foreign policy, it will further jeopardize our work, the high-level official said. It can create security risks for our staff. It can create a lack of acceptance in communities. The potential negative repercussions are quite far-reaching. U.S. spokesman Stephanie Dujarric told reporters that a number of UN entities have received questionnaires from the U.S. government and would respond in accordance with their respective rules. A spokesperson with UNAIDS, which has counted on the U.S. for half of its budget, confirmed it had received several different questionnaires from the U.S. since the new administration arrived. We answer each time. The deadlines for responding appear to differ. One large aid organization said its deadline fell on the same day as U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced the completion of the U.S. review. If the review is already done, it's unclear to us how they will actually use this information, an aid agency official said. A staff member at another large aid organization agreed. Unclear is the key word of 2025. Yeah, kind of unclear in that respect, but everything else seems clear. The Zionists are going to try to take over the world this year. Israeli forces detained Palestinian Jerusalem-based journalist Latifa Abdel Latif. There she is right there. Nice lady. Israeli forces on Sunday detained prominent Palestinian journalist Latifa Abdel Latif after raiding her home at the Damascus Gate in occupied Jerusalem's Old City. According to the official Jerusalem government's Twitter account, Abdel Latif's detention was further extended by an Israeli court on Monday, where she was accused of incitement online and publishing inflammatory content. Abdel Latif is a freelance journalist who has contributed to Middle East Eye and several other news platforms. She's previously been the subject of crackdowns by Israeli forces. In late May 2021, she was beaten, pepper sprayed, and had her headscarf forcibly removed by Israeli forces while she was filming the detention of a young boy in occupied East Jerusalem. Covering the nationwide Palestinian general strike at the Old City's Damascus Gate, Abdel Latif reported seeing a child being detained by Israeli forces. His father and other Palestinians nearby tried to stop the detention, which sparked a confrontation. Abdel Latif then tried to film the incident, but was pushed by Israeli officers, despite making it clear to them she was a reporter. I'm a journalist, she repeated. The officers ignored her and continued to push her back, then pulled down her hijab and struck her with a baton on the knee. Nancy Kerrigan style. Palestinians at the scene stepped in to protect Abdul Latif, scuffling with Israeli forces. A number of them were arrested as a result. Kind of sounds like NYPD, doesn't it? Who's actually trained by the IDF and Mossad and others. At the time, Palestinians across the political divide began a nationwide general strike protesting Israel's bombardment of the besieged Gaza Strip. The strike was aimed at disrupting all economic and commercial establishments in Jerusalem, the occupied West Bank, Gaza, and Palestinian communities inside Israel. The May 2021 assault left 256 Palestinians dead and thousands wounded, as well as damaging over 50,000 homes and destroying key infrastructure. It also came amid plans to forcibly displace residents of the Palestinian neighborhood of Sheikh Jarrah in occupied East Jerusalem after days of attacks at the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound. Such uprooting remains ongoing today as campaigns to remove Palestinians in the West Bank have become rampant. Yeah. So another journalist at the hands of neo-Nazis in Israel there. Meanwhile, Germany, they're a little touchy about the old Nazi symbols there. German media told to conceal Nazi symbols in Ukraine. There it is. Look at that. The Azov Battalion. I did not see that coming. The German government has ordered national media outlets not to show Nazi symbols in Ukraine, according to the Russian Foreign Intelligence Service. But I thought there were no Nazis in Ukraine. That's the thing, right? I thought, we're not one of these things. Journalists have been warned that they may face legal repercussions for broadcasting any such imagery, the agency reported yesterday. The guidelines advise reporters to politely ask Ukrainian soldiers displaying the swastika or other Nazi-associated symbols to remove the agitation elements and avoid unwelcome actions such as performing the Nazi salute, according to the SVR. They're like, can you kind of tone down the whole Nazi thing? It's kind of a bad look here, and I'm just saying, you guys do your thing, just, kind of keep it on the low. The agency emphasized that the prevalence of Nazi iconography and ideology in contemporary Ukraine is well documented. The recommendation to exclude evidence from broadcast suggests an effort to mislead the German public about the situation, the SVR claimed. You think? While the Russian report did not specify when the document was issued or which branch of the government was responsible, it stated that compliance by news outlets reflects a lack of independence. Under the German criminal code, public display of symbols associated with the Third Reich is generally prohibited. I thought it was outright illegal. Once you get back together, East and West Germany, who knows what happens next? Except for educational, scientific, journalistic, or artistic purposes. According to Moscow, modern Ukrainian nationalism is shaped by historical collaboration with Nazi Germany during World War II. Figures such as Stepan Bandera, who sought to establish a Ukrainian nation state under German patronage, are celebrated as national heroes. Western media and officials have mimicked the use of Nazi symbols by Ukrainian soldiers, framing it as a historical quirk rather than a sign of neo-Nazi affiliations, and dismissing contrary claims as Russian propaganda. It's just a quirk. It's a historical quirk. They're not, doing shit and things with the thing. Fred Edward, what's going on, buddy? I see you in the night. Moscow contends that it has amassed substantial evidence of Ukrainian atrocities driven by notions of national supremacy, justifying its designation of the Kiev government as a neo-Nazi regime. Exactly. Okay. So in Sydney, Australia, they're a little bit down for cracking heads on protesters too. Sydney pro-Palestine group challenges New South Wales draconian protest law. Yeah, you can protest, just protest what we want you to protest. That's 1984 for you. A pro-Palestine group based in Sydney is taking the New South Wales government to court over new laws that will restrict pro-Palestine protests. A Palestine Action Group the Palestine Action Group, PAG, filed a constitutional challenge in the Supreme Court of New South Wales on Monday over what it describes as draconian anti-protest laws. The laws, according to The Guardian, are purportedly aimed at curbing anti-Semitism, giving police more power to restrict protests near places of worship. The challenge will focus on the expanded powers given to police to issue move-on orders for protests near places of worship, which civil liberties and activist organizations say could lead to protests being banned throughout most of Sydney and other cities and are unconstitutional, the Palestine Action Group wrote on Instagram. The group said NSW Premier Chris Minns rushed a draft of anti-protest laws through the parliament after a caravan bomb hoax and other attacks sparked fears of a rise in anti-Semitism. A caravan containing explosives and a list of Jewish targets found outside Sydney in January being labeled as terrorism by Minns was found to have been a con job by organized crime to distract people and influence prosecutions. How about that? Kind of like how they found that passport of one of the hijackers of 9/11 in all that rubble and stuff. They couldn't find bodies, but a fully intact passport. No problem, Chief. Attacks including anti-Semitic graffiti at a Jewish school and the former home of a Jewish figure were also found to be part of the same conspiracy. The laws were hastily passed following the attacks. And that's what happens. False flag, and then they have draconian laws that follow. Wash, rinse, and repeat. The PAG says despite police believing the attack to be a fabricated terrorist plot and despite the government receiving daily briefings from the police, the premier continued to dishonestly stoke fear of terrorism and a supposed tide of anti-Semitism to rush the laws through Parliament in February. Many members of the crossbench accused Minns and Police Minister Yasmin Catley of misleading the public and Parliament. The Guardian says the two refused to say when they knew the caravan plot was a ruse and whether it was before the bills were rushed. The PAG has also accused the premier of having one-sided support of Israel and his government's opposition to protests in solidarity with the Palestinian people. The laws passed by the government in February are reportedly meant to curb anti-Semitism, with the most controversial being to restrict protests near places of worship, which carries a maximum penalty of 2 years in prison. The PAG is challenging the law that enables the police to move in on protesters in or near places of worship, regardless of what the protest is about, and whether it is directed at the institution. If someone blocks access in or near a place of prayer, the police can order them to move on. How near a person is to the place of worship is at the discretion of the police. So if you're like 8 blocks away protesting, they're like, you're too close. You're too close to a church there. I was trying to do an Australian accent, and then it turned into New Jersey, and you can't go back once you do that. The laws threaten the rights not just of Palestine protesters, but of everyone, which is reflected in the very broad opposition that is mounting to these laws from a large range of civil society, activists, and trade union organizations, the PAG said. So, a trend, not just here in the United States, but in a lot of these shitty Western allied countries doing the same as well. And finally, in our propaganda watch block, a jury deliberates U.S. pipeline case with free speech implications. So going back to the Dakota Access Pipeline, I'm going back to this story. You remember that? At the heart of the case in the Dakota Access Pipeline, where nearly a decade ago the Standing Rock Sioux Tribe led one of the largest anti-fossil fuel protests in U.S. history, hundreds were arrested and injured, prompting concerns from the United Nations over violations of indigenous sovereignty, which the American government doesn't give two shits about. The pipeline, which transports fracked crude oil to refineries and global markets, has been operational since 2017. But its operator, Energy Transfer, has continued pursuing legal action against Greenpeace first in a federal lawsuit seeking $300 million, which was dismissed, and then in the 3-week trial in a state court in Mandan, North Dakota. Critics call the case a clear example of strategic lawsuit against public participation, SLAP, designed to silence dissent and drain financial resources. Notably, North Dakota is among the minority of U.S. states without anti-SLAP protections. In February, Greenpeace became the first group to test the European Union's anti-SLAP directive by suing Energy Transfer in the Netherlands. The group is seeking damages with interest and demanding that Energy Transfer publish the court's findings on its website. More than 400 organizations, along with public figures such as singer Billie Eilish and actors Jane Fonda and Susan Sarandon, have signed on an open letter in support of Greenpeace, as have hundreds of thousands of individuals globally. Although I heard Billie Eilish was kind of pro-Israel. I think I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't care. I don't give a shit about Billie Eilish anyway. I don't listen to that shit. So yeah, that's your propaganda watch for today. Brought to you by Fuckery, where fuckery is always afoot. How's everybody doing? We're still hanging in there. 2.5 hours in. Might go another 3. I was trying to keep it. I even had less stories this time. But I got this final one. This is the fun one. Always got to, can't leave you all salty. Got to leave you a little sweets, right? A little bit of sugar. So a parade of 897 wiener dogs breaks Guinness World Record in Germany. Oh, we got it. Look. So, okay. Let's see here.
Ja, mein Dackel und ich, das ist eine Sache für sich.
Regensburg im Dackelhype.
All right, hang on a second. We're going to start that over because we got to have the closed captions on. All right. I think closed captions are on. Are they on? We'll see.
Ja, mein Dackel und ich, das ist eine Sache für sich.
Regensburg im Dackelhype. Die letzte Parade ein echter Erfolg und ein bayerisches Kultsymbol.
Ja, der Dackel ist
I thought I had this set up. You know what? Fuck it. We'll just we ain't gotta watch the shit. I mean, we ain't gotta read the shit. We just watch it. So let me turn this down. Okay. Look at these puppers, right? So they got 897 of these cute little critters. And they made some sort of little thing there. Look at them. Look at the, whoa. Look at those puppers. They got big puppers too. Little wiener dogs. You're attacking the wiener dogs. Can you imagine that? Billy Eyelashes. Hey, Go Start. What's up, buddy? Good to see you. So anyway, let's get to the story part of this. German city broke a Guinness World Record when it hosted a parade that featured some 900 dachshunds or more. Regensburg, home of the dachshund-themed Dackel Museum, hosted the world's largest dachshund dog walk when the Dackel Parade featured at least 897 wiener dogs walking with their owners. Some counts indicated the number may have been as high as 1,175, but Guinness World Records could only confirm 897. I mean, really? I mean, you couldn't count an extra almost 300 dogs. Seppi Kulbeck was who founded the Dackel Museum with his husband Oliver Storrs, said the parade was aimed at bringing some positive energy to the community. The Dachshund isn't political, he told the Süddeutsche Zeitung newspaper. For the Dachshund, all people are equal regardless of skin color or where they come from. I don't know, man. I've known some pretty racist dogs in my day. You know what I mean? I'm like, wait a minute, dog. I didn't teach you that. So yeah, Doc Dick Draggers. Yeah. It's just fun. You know, you gotta have a little pupper story in there. We had the stealing monkey last week, that thieving ass monkey down in Peru. And now we got this. Anybody else come in late? See, besides Ghost Art, I think we're all good. Yeah, so that's the show for today, y'all. Of course, don't forget our pals Chanda and Kevin, as they need your help too. as Chanda's fighting lung cancer, and our buddy Kevin is dealing with his home being burned down in the LA fires. Both of their GoFundMe links are down below. If you don't mind, if you can't donate, if you can share out the links, that would be great too. Every little bit helps. You can support this channel too. We've got those things too. If you could like, share, and subscribe. And when you subscribe, make sure the bell is a solid color, because I don't know why they don't just go ahead and do that. When you subscribe on YouTube, it always gives you that clear looking bell, and people sometimes they don't get the notifications. So make the bell solid. Even if you're already subscribed, you might want to go back and check and make sure that that's checked too, because YouTube loves some fuckery. I don't know why they do that shit like that. So, but yeah, and our donation links are down below too. If you want to donate to us, you can become a Patreon for $1 a month if you want. That helps us out. Or like I said, if you don't have the cash, which probably most of you, or probably all of you don't, that's fine. If you could share out the links, that helps too. It was great over the weekend. We had the secret show back for the first time in a little bit. Had a good crowd and got a few subscribers from that too. So it was really nice. So we're creeping up towards 600 subscribers here. It's kind of I don't really care about big numbers like that, as long as the people like that of the 570 whatever that's subscribed to now to us now, as long as most of them are active viewers and stuff, that's all I care about. Because we're trying to build community. We're not trying to build some sort of big numbers platform where you get ignored all the time by oh wait, she did? She's not doing the GoFundMe anymore? Okay. All right. Well, maybe that's good. Thanks, Ghost Art. Appreciate that. I'll just double check that. I just assumed she probably wanted to keep it up for to help pay for stuff. So maybe she's good now. Okay. I'll definitely double check that. Thanks, Ghost Art. Appreciate that. Yeah, I think that's it. Doing this Tuesdays and Fridays now instead of Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And I think it's working out pretty well. I thought I was condensing these shows a little bit, but apparently I'm not. Apparently they're just as long. But again, I appreciate all the love and support. I wouldn't be doing this show if you guys didn't want it. I'm not here to hear myself talk. In fact, I don't really like the sound of my voice very much. So, but you got to get the information out there as best we can, and hopefully it does you some good. And hopefully you can spread it to some of the people outside the space and in their own little bubbles and get them educated. So, yeah, so we will see you again. Her GoFundMe was threatening her benefits. Oh, I see. And that fucked up. That is so fucked up, dude. Yeah. That fucking America, man. You can't, if we had free healthcare, like a lot of these other normal ass countries around the world, we wouldn't have to worry about shit, GoFundMes or benefits or anything like that. That would be just like a non-factor. We could focus our efforts on more productive areas instead of trying to keep ourselves alive and trying to keep ourselves financially afloat because of that. Okay, good to know. Thank you, Ghost Art. I appreciate the update there. But Kevin's is still up. That's for sure. He definitely needs the help. And we'll see about, I don't know. We'll see. I'll investigate, see what other ways she's trying to raise funds, hopefully. Because we love Chanda. She's a good person. She does good work too. So her and Oz over there at Beauty and the Boomer, they're good people. So yeah, I guess that's going to be it. I'll be back on Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central, 9 a.m. Mountain, and 8 a.m. Pacific time. Yes, I said it's specific on purpose. I don't know when we're going to bring back ExtraBulla Live. I want to get some good interview guests in. So hopefully we'll get that back up and running pretty soon. Other than that, I appreciate all yous. Take care of yourselves. And love, not hate, because hate only hurts yourselves. All right? You ain't got to like somebody, but don't let the hate eat you up. All right? We'll see you next time. Peace!
This is City Alpha 5! Woo!